Welcome to the French Pro Championship 2021. This championship, it takes place in Le Puy-en-Velay in France. And as always, we have 12 athletes and 6 disciplines, 3 rounds. And next to me, my colleague, Troy Mannering. Hi, how are you doing?
Hey everybody, hi Pia, thanks, I'm good. I'm looking forward to the French Championship today. It's going to be exciting that I got a lot of good athletes ready to go here. One of them in particular that we're going to be keeping a close eye on is Pierre Puybare. He's basically their #1 guy. He's been at it a long time, so really excited to see how this particular championship goes down for France, and it's going to be a lot of fun today.
Me too. He's the reigning champion, and he's the one who has to be beaten by all the other athletes if they want to win. It's going to be a very exciting competition, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's going to be rock and roll today, I believe.
Oh yes, I think so too. And now we're going to see some wood preparation, how they do it. It's very special wood, isn't it? And only a special manner for this competition, right?
Well, it looks like some of the guys are already in preparation and behind there. Just regarding the wood preparation a little bit, Pia, it's all taken care of by Bart Janssen and his company. They have a plantation of specific trees that they take their wood from, and it's prepared in a way that when the wood arrives at the various events, that you always have exactly the same type of wood for each athlete. They have a special draw where the wood is picked by a random draw for each of the athletes so that it can be as fair as possible, because obviously it wouldn't be fair to see a block for one guy that was 5 centimeters larger than the block for the other guy that he's got to chop through. So it's taken a long time to make sure that this wood is actually fair for all athletes.
And they also can claim it if they are seeing anything they are not fine with, right?
Correct.
So the man of today's competition is Pierre Puybare. We're gonna watch him. He's the guy everybody will have a look at because he's the reigning champion today.
Yeah, and I mean, you see him there. He's gagging a little bit in the background. You could see him with his lube spray a little bit there, spraying on the axe like the Salt Bay guy. So I mean, he's having a bit of fun.
Good.
Yeah. So, but the interesting thing about Puybare is when he is in behind the case, he's just having fun and enjoying. But when he's out on the stage, he's all business. So you'll see the change in his facial expression and everything when he comes out on stage for the competition. So keep a close eye on that today.
I will. I'm already excited. And we'll have the first clip, which is about the discipline and the tool. I've mistaken something. We've got the clip about Pierre Puybare because he's the one we're watching at, and I'll wish you much fun watching him now. So we'll go right to the stage. We'll go live now to Le Puy-en-Velay. What do you now know about the village? It should be beautiful, what I've heard.
Yeah, it's a lovely little area, and it's always funny. They manage to find these great spots for the STIHL TIMBERSPORTS, whether it be in Sweden or Austria or anywhere around the world. They always have these fantastic locations with beautiful scenery in the background that sort of lends itself to the STIHL TIMBERSPORTS action and everything. So again, they've done it, and it's a fantastic setup, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes and plays out today, especially seeing as we have the BJB stage all set up as well.
With their own. So we're gonna come to the start list now. Let's take a look who's gonna compete first against whom. It's gonna be Meyer against Poisson, right?
Yeah.
I hope I'm pronouncing them the correct way. And then Meyer against Canton. And what do you think for the third one? It's Pajar against Lejoux. And in the fourth heat, David is gonna go against Masrada and Maurice against Puybare in the fifth heat. And in the sixth heat, Maurice against Machal, right?
Yeah, and I mean, this heat with Pierre Puybare should be interesting because he also holds the national record for underhand chop, which is our first discipline today. And you'll see this first heat coming up. Mark, I don't know if it's fair to call it Müller or Müller. It's such a German-sounding last name, but Mark Müller going up against Pierre-Louis Poisson. And there you see Pierre-Louis Poisson. A couple of big boys getting ready to rock and roll here, and it'll be interesting to see how they start this competition. The idea here is to chop through the block as quickly as possible, and yeah, let's see how this one drops down.
I'm already excited because it looks so hard, and I think it's a great discipline to start with, don't you?
Absolutely.
Which heat do you think will be the most exciting, like the most challenging for the athletes?
We might actually be surprised. I mean, we know that Pierre Puybare is the reigning champion. He's got the national record for the underhand chop, but it doesn't mean that that's going to be an exciting heat. He could whip through it, or it could be a real challenge for him. Let's see. We may find that there could be a couple of surprises in the mix as we get going. Here we go.
Athletes ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
So there we get a close-up view of Mark Müller and Poisson on the other side. And you can see Poisson has decided to start his block with his back facing the audience. Now in this case, it's going to mean that he'll jump around to the other side of the block to cut through on his second side facing the audience, which is sometimes an interesting choice as we see Müller switches over just a stroke behind Poisson. So it's a pretty close heat so far. Let's see who's got the accurate hits and the blows and the power. Nice slabs coming off of Poisson's block there. This one is, yeah, it might be close. Let's see. And we can see that wood looks pretty moist today. And it is Müller getting through there first in a time of 39.43. Poisson struggling on the second side of his block as he is still trying to break through. Gets a little bit stuck there. So that is going to mean a pretty slow time for Poisson at 53.33. Now, these first calls on the times are, of course, unofficial until our stage judges check everything to make sure that it's all fair, and then we'll get the official call and the updated times. And sometimes you'll see that the times will change as they get checked through competition control. So we'll wait for Bart Janssen to give us the all thumbs up here. All right, so 2 thumbs up, and there you see the adjusted times. And Mark Müller has a personal best of 39.21, so a really good start to the day for him. All right, so taking a look at the Slo-Mo here. This was the very beginning couple of strokes by these two athletes on stage, and you could see they were stroke for stroke, more or less with each other until they switched to the other side. And then Mark Müller just started to pick up the pace a little bit more. He had the faster hits, and that definitely boded well for him as he managed to get through that block in a time of 39.21. Pierre-Louis Poisson, unfortunately, he wasn't hitting quite as well today as we would expect, but a time of 53.55 is not outrageous. And yeah, there you see the final blow from Mark Müller as he pulls through as the winner in this heat here. And we take a look at our next heat in the underhand chop, and that is Julian Meyer against Adrian Cortot. And please forgive me if I've messed up any of the names here today. I'll do my best. So there we see Julian Meyer. Another very German-sounding last name here. And Adrian Cortot, fully concentrated before the start. Here we go.
Okay. Athletes ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Big backswing by Adrian Cortot to start things off. Julian Meyer opting to have back to the audience to begin this competition. Personal best, by the way, for both of these guys are more or less kind of close together. Julian Meyer with a 50.92 and Adrian Cortot with a 42.85. So a slight advantage as far as personal bests are concerned for Cortot, but it looks like Cortot was over to the other side of his block well before Meyer. And right now the time to beat for the lead is 39.21. Could we see somebody taking over the top spot and the 12 points that they'll get in this first heat here? Well, not in this case, and it's, oh my goodness, how close was that? A 46.99 to a 46.50. Courteau just through, and no best scores here for either of these guys, but it was a very close heat right up to the final blows there. All right, so we now have official times locked up there, and we're looking at Adrian Courteau with a 46.49 and Julian Meyer with a 46.94 as we get set on stage as they rebuild the stage for our next two heats. And there we see that is some stress being released in that breath right there. Full concentration as they get going here on this heat. This is heat number 2. And we'll come back into the studio shortly, but we can see here good pace for both of these guys. And sometimes it's just a little bit of a mention of the log here. We talked about the fairness of the wood, and you can see the times are a little bit slower, and that can be partially due to the wood and also partially due to just how the athletes are hitting on the day. But that was a really close heat right there between Julian Meyer and Adrian Courteau.
But the first place, it's his personal best time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even though the times are a bit slower than normally, or than usually, the first time is still a personal best.
Yeah, it's a personal best for Mark Muller at this point, and if the competition ended for him right now, that means that he would have the 12 points in this first discipline and would move on to the next round. But we got to think about it in the sense of that there's 3 disciplines in the first round, and so these guys have to get through these first 3 disciplines with the best time possible, at which point the points are all calculated together, and then we find out, who are the top 8 guys moving on to the next round. So piece by piece we'll get there, but 2 heats in, and the action started pretty well already.
Yeah, and we're going to have a clip now, right, watching it about. What is it about? Do you know it? Can you explain it more?
I don't know what the clip is that's coming up here. I think we're talking about the tools that are being used in this particular discipline. So maybe let's have a look and fly by the seat of our pants a little bit here.
So it will be about
the axes used in timber sports definitely can't be bought at your local hardware store. Made from special steel, the blade is hand sanded with an angle of 13 to 16 degrees. It's custom built and carefully adjusted for each competition. The weight is around 3 kilos and it's about 80 centimeters long. The blade is so sharp that you could shave with it. Underhand chop. In the past, the underhand chop technique was used to split logs. Standing on a horizontally anchored block, the athletes cut through a 32 centimeter log. The block has to be worked from both sides.
All right, so there's our next heat lined up. Alain Pajar against Christophe Larue. You can see their stats are fairly equal. Christophe Larue just a hair faster in the personal best. And still the time to beat for today is 39.21, held by Mark Muller. So we're moving to now our heat number 3 in underhand chop.
3, 2, 1, go!
Good start, stroke for stroke. Both of these guys hitting that wood really nicely. And look at them, they are right in sync with each other. A quick little lock up there for Pajar, but he caught back up, and now they're starting to get deeper into this first side. Let's see who's going to be the first to switch over. It is going to be Pajar. Pajar moving over to the other side quickly. Larue now has moved over to the other side of his block. Pajar with the advantage, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Pajar has this one locked up. It's going to be who comes through that block first. And there's Larue with a quick hookup. Oh, Pajar with a massive lock of his axe as he had to pull that thing out. So drastic when you have to really wrench that thing out there. So both of these guys really struggling to find their time. And it's Pajar through first with a time of 42.64. Just a little bit slower than his personal best of 41.37. And Larue is well off pace for his personal best. And it looks like he is finally got through there with one final stroke, and he gets done in 54.11. And again, I have to reiterate that these times are unofficial until our stage judge gives the thumbs up on both stands. So there'll be a quick inspection of both blocks. The guys will come to the middle, and decision time. All right, so we have some adjusted times. The official time now, 42.44 and a 59.10. So Christophe Larue well off pace for his personal best, which is unfortunate for him as he sits down at the bottom of the bucket at the moment after 3 heats. As we take a look here, these guys both started off really well. They were stroke for stroke with each other each step of the way. And then it just started to go a little bit south as they switched over to the front side of their block. You can see there's the first stick by Christophe Larue, and then there was a massive stick on the other side for Pajar, but he managed to get through in a fairly good time of, where is he now, 42.44. So he is currently sitting in second in the standings of underhand chop so far as we check out heat number 3. And this is Alain David against Sebastian Masnada. There we see Sebastian. Oh, excuse me, Alain David. Heavy concentration by both of these gentlemen here as they get ready for heat number 4. Underhand chop. Here we go.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go.
Now you notice the movement just before the timer said go. They can upswing on that as long as their axe does not impact the log before the go. Then they're safe to start the competition. Otherwise, it would be a DQ. Another thing to keep a close eye on is that the footholds that they're standing on, they may not chop through those footholds with the axe. Now Masnada has already moved over to the other side of his block, and it looks like Alain David has also moved over to the other side of his block. Masnada is really hitting well today. A bit of a stick there for him, though, as he got that axe caught. So you have to choose between power and accuracy and being able to really cut through that block cleanly and giving it too much power and getting the axe stuck in the wood. And Masnada with a great time of 41.84. That puts him currently unofficially in second place. And it is a good finish by Alain David as well with a 43.95. He's 4 seconds off pace here. So Alain David shuffles himself into 4th place with Sebastian Masnada sitting up in 2nd place after 4 heats with 4 more heats to go. 2 more, excuse me. 12 athletes, do the math, buddy. So official times are now up. Alain David with a 43.73 and Sebastian Masnada with a 41.21. Yeah, very nice so far. The action's been good. And take a look at what's happening on stage there. You can see really quickly the stage crew comes out there, and they really get that stage cleaned up quickly. So they have to set up 4 blocks again for the next 2 heats. And you can see here, these guys were slabbing out some big pieces, taking some huge haymaker swings from way up on high to really dig into the backside of that block. But it was Sebastian Masnada with the faster hits and good accuracy. And you can see there, that last little hit, a great job by Masnada. And you can see all the slabs on the ground there. They really, really worked those blocks. So good heat right there.
So that was a quite exciting competition, wasn't it? Very
so
exciting
far, so
heats.
Good. Yeah,
yes.
I mean, they've been really good so far. Nothing majorly surprising. I think what we're seeing now is the times are a little bit slower than normal, but that's not unusual. Weather conditions can play a role. If it's really, really muggy out there with a lot of moisture in the air, the blocks can tend to be a little bit harder to get through, or vice versa. If it's really, really dry, you'll see the blocks causing problems there as well. So, it seems like everything, and this is what we talked about off the top of the show, Pia, the wood is really, really fair for these athletes. So you could see that now with the times being pretty consistent through each of these heats. The next one's going to be really interesting, though, because we've got Pierre Puybare coming up in this heat. And, as he is the national record holder for the underhand chop,
And he's also been on the French Cup in June 2021. He's been first.
Yeah.
So he's got a pretty good time this year. I think he's in good shape, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in very good shape, and he's probably highly motivated as well because he became a daddy in 2020 to a little girl. So big congratulations to Pierre Puybare for that. All right, how quick are these guys with setting up that stage? They do such a great job. It's like a Formula One crew out there, Pia. They're really fast. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I mean, got to give them big props. So these are two guys that are very, very experienced axemen, Alexandra Maurice and Pierre Puybare. And as the, let's call it the record holder in France for this discipline, Pierre Puybare definitely has a target on his back, but Alexandra Maurice, he's no slouch. He's got a 30.60 personal best. That's a little bit off the pace from Pierre Puybare, but, he may have luck today. Let's see.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Wow, really quick start by Maurice as we saw him get into that block very, very fast. Pierre Puybare also in there quickly as he's turned around already. Wow, very fast switch by Pierre Puybare. Maurice 2 strokes behind Puybare. This could be an interesting one as Puybare is really working that block hard. And he is such a tall man as well. Whoa, what a time for Pierre Puybare, 24:31. He has just obliterated his personal best of 27:64, and it's Alex Maurice still struggling a little bit as he stepped down off the block and had to come back up for that final stroke and a time of 32:49. Also pretty good, but not his personal best. But what a time by Pierre Puybare, who has obviously been putting in the time off screen to practice and train and make sure he was really fit for this event. Absolutely fantastic. And look at that, the official time, 24:02 by Pierre Puybare. His previous personal best was a 27:64, and that means he will be at the top of the rankings so far in underhand chop. And if we look at this start again by both of these guys, Maurice was really quick into the block, but look at the hits by Puybare. Not one single stick by him, slapping out nicely on the first set of cuts, and then switches over to the other side so quickly, and that final swing through almost spine-tailed him with the axe coming through his legs with so much power. What a fantastic heat by Puybare, and you can see the step down there by Maurice. Unfortunate, that cost him probably 2 seconds just to make that final hit to split the log. So, he could have had a very good time of 30, but he had to step down and step back up. And so right now we have one personal best, and Puybare with an absolute fantastic time in the underhand chop of 24:02. You can see he's 11 seconds faster, and that means he is leading in the overall standings so far, with our final heat coming up in the underhand chop, and that is Guillermo against Cyril Marchal. And you'll notice that a lot of these guys are a little bit older as well, Pia. We're talking about 29, 30, 35, 41. We've even had a couple of guys in previous events that are 65 and so years old that are still competing. So it's fantastic for these old guys like me to be able to say, yeah, cool, let's go. All right, so Guillermo, Cyril Marchal. Cyril Marchal right in front of your camera right there. And he too is hitting well today. Guillermo with a little bit of a stick, but he's got the flow back again, and Marchal has moved over to the backside of his block, and Moret probably take 1 or 2 more hits and then switch around himself. Now he's opting to go a bit deeper on the first side. That may cost him in the end. Oh, excuse me, Moret was already on his second side. I didn't even notice that, and look at the time, 26:49. How quick was he? I didn't even see him switch sides. I was sleeping at the wheel over here. Meanwhile, Cyril Marchal threw in a 39:54, and Moret has a personal best of 26:49, but they've readjusted it here now, so we may see a change there because his previous personal best was 27:00. So, looks like they've already made the change on the timing. Oh, that's unfortunate because he did have a very fast time in the initial count, but they readjusted, and now he's got a 27:20. Nevertheless, that's a great time for Guillermo. He is now sitting in second place after the underhand chop. Man, I mean, Moray was quick on the turnaround. Like I said, I completely missed it. That's a happy man right there. A little bit unfortunate that he didn't get that personal best after they went to competition control and readjusted the final time. But nevertheless, that's a great time, and that puts him in second place just behind Puybare. So far, so good for him. And Alexandra Maurice sitting in third place with a 35.77. Great start to our competition so far, Pia.
I liked it really, really much, and Puybare is still first, but Moray is second. And he has said he wants to become one of the best European athletes this year, so we're gonna watch. And now we have an interview at the place in France, in Le Puybare, and I'll hand over to Alain with a live interview with Puybare.
Avec tout ce public, et je suis avec le vainqueur de la première de ce championnat de France 2021, Pierre Puybare. Pierre, ça s'est vraiment bien passé pour cette coupe. Une belle coupe, malgré que le bois était un peu dur, mais ça a fait. Voilà, du coup, ça va certainement te donner du punch pour la suite de la compétition. Bah là, ça me met en confiance pour la suite, ouais, donc on va essayer de tout donner pour le reste de la compétition. Voilà, c'est tout dit, il va falloir compter avec lui, il faudra le surveiller de près. Merci, à vous Munich.
So he said he's not completely content with or happy with his result, even though he's first place, but he will give everything in the following disciplines to have personal bests and to be even better and to win this competition. That's all from Puybare.
Yeah, that's the competition spirit right there for you. And you know, these guys in the top ranks, I mean, really you could say that about all of them, but it's just amazing how much they really want to be that much better in these sports, and they really push every time. And you saw that with Maurice and Puybare to start things off. So, I mean, really good start to the competition here today, and we're moving on to the next discipline.
Yes, I'm really excited about this one. It's stock saw, and it's amazing to just watch them. I think it does need a lot of strength, doesn't it?
Stock saw requires some strength, but above all, it just requires a little bit of a fine touch as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, you will see now more about discipline and the tool stock saw in about a minute.
The STIHL MS661CM stock saw is used in STIHL Timbersports as the ultimate test of operator's skill. Designed for the toughest jobs in forestry, it produces approximately 7.3 horsepower, has a displacement of 91.1 cc, and weighs 7.4 kilograms. To ensure evenly and fairly matched saws, professional STIHL technicians prepare and test the saws before each competition. Stock saw. After the starting shot, the contestants have to cut 2 wooden discs, so-called cookies, within a 10-centimeter mark, one downward and one upward. The attempt is only valid when both discs have been cut off completely and within the marks.
So let's take a look at the start list of stock saw. In the first heat, Puybare is against Maurice. So this is going to be really exciting, I think. I'm very keen for this one. They're going to rock it, aren't they?
I think so. But this is a discipline that Pierre Puybare isn't super strong in. I mean, you could see their personal bests are pretty close, but I mean, Pierre Puybare is stronger in the chopping disciplines like underhand chop and standing block chop, but he also likes the trophy format. and he holds the records in all of those for France. So it could be that he's been training hard. I mean, the only way we'll really know that is once we see what time comes through after the stock saw. And as I was mentioning earlier, Pia, strength is really required here. Absolutely correct what you said there, because, you got to get that saw up. You got to be able to control it once it gets into position. But once it's in position on that block, if you push too hard, the chain could stop. And then you have to restart the saw. And then, or if you don't push hard enough, it doesn't cut through cleanly. So this is what the key is here. Great start by both of these guys. Maurice with a first really clean cookie. And oh my gosh, Maurice does it in 11.50. Pierre Puybare, his time didn't stop counting, but he's got an 11.85. He was just a hair behind Maurice, and this is what I was talking about. He's obviously been working on his stock saw, but Maurice is just a hair quicker than Pierre Puybare in this particular discipline. So Guillaume Maurice with a 11.44 and Pierre Puybare with an 11.69. And those times are now official, so they will be locked in place. Now, the question for these two guys is, will they be able to hold on to those times through the rest of the competition? As we looked at the personal best for both of them, they were just over the 10-second mark. And taking a look back at the start, it was a really nice start by Pierre Puybare, and as they say, thin to win. And there was barely any swing as he transitioned to the upstroke. But Maurice, on the back of the screen there, you could see he was just a hair faster, but it wasn't by that much. You could say a hair on his chinny chin, as these two competitors give each other props as they leave the stage. So our first heat is done and dusted in the stock saw as we move on to heat number 2 between Marc Müller and Pierre-Louis Poisson. Poisson. I don't want to call him a fish, yeah? Poisson. That would be a little bit unfair, wouldn't it, Pia?
He could be mad by that.
Something's fishy here, but he can sure cut a log. Boy, howdy, I tell you. All right, so there we see Marc Müller. Keep a close eye on the style that some of these guys cut with as well. You'll see some guys that bring the whole saw down together with the blade, and other guys who will set the blade high on the log, but the motor about middle, and they'll just use a fulcrum or a teeter-totter motion to cut the blade through. This is also, an interesting situation where they use different styles. Here we go.
3, 2, 1, go!
All right. Nice transition to the upstroke there by Marc Müller. Poisson is quick, though. Oh, yes, he's got a good time. 12.13 unofficial and 12.61. So both of these guys unofficially just a hair slower than Guillaume Maurice and Pierre Puybare. Let's see what happens when they readjust the times, if they even have to readjust the times. But you could see, again, the blocks very evenly matched up, and these guys are so close to each other. It's literally hundredths of a second in many cases between the heats. So let's take a look here. All right, we got a bit of a discombobulation in our feed, but it does look like from our official timing here that both cuts are good. So Pierre-Louis Poisson with an 11.98 and Marc Müller with a 12.44. And there we go. We got picture back, and we are into slow-mo. And that was a really nice start right there by Poisson. And you could see that's a piece of wood that's very thin, and that's the big thing. It's thin to win. And there's that upstroke, using the saw as best as you can. Those MS661 saws are just so reliable, though. Every single time, no problems at all. Wow, how close was that? Another really, really good heat. So our next heat on deck here, and take a look at the world record, by the way, 9:14, and the national record 9:90. So these times are really, really not that far off. A second to a little bit less than a second, as our judges remark that 10-centimeter section of the block. They have to cut within that 10-centimeter section. Also important to note, they have to cut 2 complete cookies. That means 2 full discs have to land on the deck. And if the disc is, as they say, cut out, meaning the saw goes through the outside of the disc, then they have to cut another one for the cuts to be good, but that also slows down their time considerably. So this is a very important aspect, is to get that saw in place correctly so that you can cut clean and straight and get 2 good cookies on the deck. Here we go.
Athletes, ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go.
Pajar with a good start. Courteau on the right-hand side of your screen also looking good. Woo! Synchronized cutting. Look at that. Both those cookies dropped at the same time, but it is Courteau with a slightly faster time. Oh my goodness, 12:24 to 12:72. And again, 2 really, really close heats between these guys. And it's Courteau who slips into 4th place with his 12:24. And the Pajar actually with a 12:64 adjusted time moves down to 6th place in the heats. And I mean, you're only looking at a time differential from Guillermo at the top to Elie Pajar at the bottom with 1.20 seconds. That's hardly anything. All right, let's take a look at the Slo-Mo here. Notice the hand positions also as well. Oh yeah, that's a really nice thin cookie. That first cut, just fantastic. And you can see both those cookies more or less dropped in sync with each other, hitting the floor at the same time. And then it's that upstroke that was the all-telling situation for Poisson. I mean, just fantastic there. So Pierre Puybare with a nice cut and currently sitting in 3rd place. Elie Pajar also with a good cut. I mean, it's so close. He's sitting in 6th place with heat number 4 coming up. Cyril Marchal against Christophe Larue. Time to beat at the moment is 11:44. Held by Guillermo, and he is currently atop the standings with that time in stock saw. And that means he will be 2nd place in the overall standings, just behind Puybare, if nothing else changes here. But there are still a few more heats to go. After this one, there'll be 2 additional heats.
Athletes, ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go.
Wow, that's a massively thick cookie for Cyril Marchal. Christophe Larue on the other side. He struggled to get that second cut on the upstroke, but Cyril Marchal with a good time, 12:11, and Christophe Larue with a 13:45. Very, very nice cut. I mean, that was just a massively thick cookie for Cyril Marchal to start things off with. Doesn't seem to have affected his performances at all as he pulls into 4th place at the 12:02. The cuts are all good, says our judge on stage, and we have official times 12:02, 13:42. So Christophe Larue unfortunately drops down into the 8th position, moving Elie Pajar up a spot, and Cyril Marchal slips himself into 4th place with a good time of 12:02. Guillermo and Pierre Puybare still at the top of the stock saw results, but look at the size of that cookie. The first cookie is just massive, and then hardly any swing at all. And there is where normally we're seeing the fat cookies come on the upstroke, but he had thin to win on the way back up. So that's some pretty good targeting by Cyril Marchal. Good job. All right, next heat in stock saw. We are motoring through, literally. Motor saw, motoring. I made a little pun there. I'm laughing at my own joke. It's terrible. Dad jokes all day, really. All right, so our next heat there, Alexandra Maurice against Julian Meyer. And we should see an interesting heat here. Both of these guys have really respectable times, but Alexandra Maurice, his personal best is a 9.95. Remember, the world record is a 9.50. So that is really, really close. And will we see a world record here today? It's entirely possible. Based on the way the wood is performing for some of these saws, I'm going to say probably not, but anything is possible and can happen. Two very strong sawyers in this discipline, though, here with Alexandra Maurice and Julian Meyer. And again, it's just about the pressure that you put on that saw. You don't want too much to stall the chain. You don't want to have too little and not cut clean and fast. So here we go. This should be a good one. This may be the surprise heat of the day.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Alexander Maurice right there in front of you. He's got a good clean cut. Oh, look at the upstroke there. Very close to the line. Can he keep it clean inside the line? And it is 12:51. Slow times for both of these guys compared to their personal best. And we may have a check on the line for Maurice because he was really close on the upstroke. He had a couple of fat cookies there. Julian Meyer, let's see if both cuts are good. All right, we have thumbs up, and times are official for both of these guys, 12:42 to 13:71. So Alexandra Maurice sits in 5th place with Julian Meyer down in 10th with one more heat to go. Remember, we're only taking the top 8 athletes into round 2, but we still have another discipline after stock saw in round 1. And you can see here, Julian Meyer, his cuts really leaning into that saw. There, the first cookie from Maurice. And that second cookie, holy smokes, folks, was that close to the line. But he managed to keep it fair and clean and got 2 good cuts. So far in stock saw, we see Guillermo at the top with Pierre Puybare right there in 2nd place and Pierre-Louis Poisson in 3rd place. Unfortunately, the bottom guys are going to be the big question mark here, as we remember we're only taking the top 8 in the timing. So there is another discipline for a couple of these guys to make up ground, as we see Pierre Puybare still at the top of the ranking with Guillermo and Alexander Maurice in 2nd and 3rd place respectively, and Cyril Marchal sitting in 4th, Mark Muller in 5th, as we have one more heat to go in stock saw. And that is Alain David and Sebastian Masnada. Alain David, full concentration. They'll get a chance to get those saws running, heat them up a bit, and get ready to go. Now, the difference here in stock saw to the other discipline that's motorized, the hot saw, is that these saws can stay running before start of competition, whereas hot saw, they actually have to do a cold start. All right, we are underway. Both of these guys have pretty respectable personal bests as well. Alain David with a 10:11 personal best, and oh, he's looking good here. Could he get it under? No, he's not going to do it, but they're both pretty close, 12:07, 12:01. That was a good heat as well. Man, all of these heats so close to each other. It's unbelievable. So Alain David with an 11.98 slips into 4th place. Sebastian Masnada is also not bad. Ooh, an 11.85, and he slips up into 3rd place in the stock saw results. So that's very, very good. And that's shifting things around a little bit, as it looks like we have some changes in the overall standings as well. We'll take a look at the Slo-Mos really quickly first, and then we'll talk about the overall standings briefly. And that's a nice start right there. You can see it's a nice thin cookie. I think for me, though, the telltale position is how well you do on the upstroke. And boy, those guys were really close together on that final cut. That second cookie coming off of both of those logs with just 100ths of a second between them. Great job. So the positions in stock saw, you see Maurice, Puybare, Masnada, Poisson, and David all in the top 5 positions. Poisson and David with tied points timing. And then we look at the overall, Pierre Puybare and Maurice and Masnada top 3. But unfortunately, positions 9, 10, 11, and 12 will be eliminated if this were the situation now at the end of the next heat, because we have one more discipline still to come, Pia.
Yes, we've got one more discipline to come. But before this discipline will start, we've got another interview with Alain on site in Le Puy-en-Velay. And he'll be there in just a second. I'm really curious who he's going to interview.
Bonjour Monique, c'est le Puy-en-Velay où se déroule ce championnat de France et ça marche très très fort. La tronçonneuse vient de se terminer. Je suis en compagnie non pas du vainqueur mais de Alexandre Maurice, le Bourguignon. Alexandre, une belle épreuve avec une belle empoignade. Il y a des chronos qui sont très serrés. Hein.
Oui, ça allait très vite. Moi, j'ai un petit peu trop pressé sur la tronçonneuse, donc du coup, j'ai un temps qui est moyen. Je pense que ça va me coûter cher. Après une 3e place à l'Underhand, se louper un peu la tronçonneuse, c'est un peu dommage.
Il te reste encore une épreuve pour te reprendre avant le break et puis de savoir lesquels vont être autorisés à poursuivre les épreuves officielles.
Oui, pour le break, je pense que ça va aller, mais bon, avoir loupé la 2e épreuve, c'est toujours un peu dommage pour la suite, quoi. Après, le standing dans du bois qui est un peu dur, moi, ça me pose pas trop de problème, ça devrait aller, ouais.
Voilà, bah écoute, on te souhaite très bonne chance pour la suite des événements. On espère te retrouver tout à l'heure devant la caméra. Merci. À vous, Monique.
Merci, Alain. Alexandre Maurice just said he is okay with the 4th place in the overall standings, but he's expecting much more for the next discipline, because in the standing block job, he's always a bit better, he just said, and he's already very keen to compete. He's ready. Yeah, what are you thinking? Is he gonna be the first place? Is he gonna lead?
Well, I mean, he's obviously highly motivated for this event. There's no doubt about it. And I mean, you could see he's right there with Pierre Puybare. He's not far off the pace, and the two of them are right there at the top with one more discipline to come. But you have to also consider that both of these guys are really, really strong in the standing block chop. In fact, like I said before, in the standing block chop, Pierre Puybare has the national record. And
Wow.
That's what we're going to see coming up next.
Yeah, I'm very keen. But before we'll start with the next discipline, there's some information for you about the tool and the discipline itself, because it's like simulating chopping a tree, isn't it?
Exactly.
Oh well, we'll see now.
Standing block chop. At the standing block chop, the felling of a tree with an axe is simulated. A vertically positioned wooden block with a diameter of 30 centimeters has to be cut through both sides. A powerful and precise swing with the axe is the premise of a good result.
And we'll have now a clip introduction of an atmosphere clip. Like, I've been once at a STIHL TIMBERSPORTS competition 2 weeks ago in Poland. I've been there as a field reporter, and it was amazing. Like, the atmosphere, the people, they were cheering. Even though the audience was very small, it was just a feeling. It was amazing. Yeah. Have you been on site once?
Numerous times, and I have to
Yeah.
tell you, it is crazy. When you get there, I mean, you've never seen fans quite like Timbersport fans. They're a little bit like crazy soccer fans. I mean, they just go bananas. They love their athletes. They sit in groups around their countries, and especially in countries like Prague, where we had just some of the most insane sport and fans, and in a great building. I mean, like I said off the top of the show, they always find amazing locations, and to add to that is the atmosphere from the events itself.
It feels a bit like a family sport, it does, but now we'll get right into the next discipline and into the clip. I'm sorry, we'll get into the clip, and I hope you will enjoy it.
It comes down to Mitch Argent and Shane Jordan battling hard on the standing block. Who is it going to be? Is it going to be Australia or New Zealand? Oh my God, how close is this? And it's Australia!
The atmosphere last night in the team's relay was unreal.
That is their title of Team World Champion 2 years in a row.
Oh, definitely. It'd be the noisiest crowd I've competed against.
Shane Jordan's already over there.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of getting goosebumps thinking about it right now.
The crowds here, they were just erupting.
You feel the energy of the crowd.
My goodness, what a great comeback from Belgium with a time of 1.
The crowd was absolutely electric.
And it was so much noise and support.
Ja, doch, das pusht schon rum und mein Fanclub ist auch da.
Very passionate about their country and yeah, the competitors.
Yeah, it feels super.
Oh my goodness, look at this.
It's pretty awesome to compete in front of a crowd like this.
But he's not giving up. He's looking good.
Like such an adrenaline rush. It's an amazing feeling.
They make a lot of noise, and that's good for our spirit. It's going to be the checker building, and the crowd goes bananas. It's absolutely extrem hier. Man hört's.
So I've got goosebumps, and I've got also goosebumps for the next discipline, for the standing block chop. In the first heat, Marc Mullet is against Adrien Courteau. In the second heat, Julian Meyer and Alain David are competing. In the third heat, Elie Pajar et Pierre Poisson. In the fourth heat, Alexandra Maurice et Christophe Larue. In the fifth heat, Cyril and Guillermo. And in the last heat of this discipline, Sebastian et Pierre Puybare.
All right, we see our first heat in the standing block chop lined up there. It's Marc Muller against Adrien Courteau. We could see again the world record there, 11:03, national record, a little bit off that, but we should have a good battle here. And this is the very important heat or set of heats in the standing block chop because it is going to determine who stays and who goes in this round number one. It's the third discipline in the first round, and it's where all bets are off as far as how quickly you can get through this block. Here we go.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
So Marc Muller right in front of you there, Adrien Courteau at the far side, and you can see, again, as the description was, just like felling a tree, it's standing and already moving over to the other side. Marc Muller and Adrien Courteau, one stroke behind Muller. Nice big slab coming off from Muller there. You got to be careful at this point, though. You want to make sure you cut through clean and don't hammer it or twist it off as it gets down to the final threads of the block. And this is where it gets really exciting. A couple of sticks there for Muller. Oh, and he's got a good hit. That final one is a personal best, by the way, of 34.82. That's, of course, unofficial, and we've seen it change before. And Adrien Courteau still working on trying to get through there. Boy, it just doesn't want to go. He's got the power hits coming along, and it looks like 2 or 3 more hits might do it, but it's really struggling to get that block off. Now it's just holding on by a thread, and finally does it in 52 even. Whew. That was a tight one, but Marc Muller with a personal best, and it has now become official on our timing screen here with a 34.52. So there you go. It is now official, a personal best for Marc Muller with 34.52, and that puts him after the first heat by default at the top of the running order. Adrien Courteau with a bit of a struggle on those last few hits on his second side with a 53.38 as we see both of them start off really well and really strong. And Adrien Courteau is actually just about a stroke behind Muller as they switched over to the other side. You can see here, maybe he saw Muller go over to the other side out of the corner of his eye and just decided maybe I'll go over there anyway. And he had just a little bit too much work on the backside, and he didn't get cut out as cleanly as he would have liked to. You can see there's some nice big hits from Muller, and you can see how accurate he is as well with those hits, and what a final blow there. Oh, man, just knocked that one off the top of the block like crazy. All right, heat number 2, Julian Meyer against Alain David. Both of these guys 39 years old, both of them pretty evenly matched out status-wise and stature-wise. Both of them have pretty close personal bests as well, a 34.38 for Meyer, and a 35.05 for Alain David. So let's see how this particular heat blocks out.
Okay. Heat ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
So really nice, efficient start by Alain David. Almost looks like he might have jumped the gun, but he was that close on the block at the go. Julian Meyer on the other side here. Alain David. Nice big hit, so you could see that axe cleanly getting in there. Alain David over to the other side quickly. Julian Meyer still working on the first side now. He comes over at about 6 strokes behind David. Julian Meyer, time is running down here. Alain David coming close to finishing off his block. Don't think we're going to have a personal best for him there, but he is really close to the thread, and he's got it finally through in 38.14. No personal best for him, but he is moved into second place with Julian Meyer dropping it at 44.81, and he has third place at the moment, being a little bit faster than Adrian Cortot. So getting those axes all sheathed up again and back to the middle for the final decision here. And there we go. Julian Meyer with a 44.54. Alain David with a 37.50 official time now. Alain David slips into second place and Julian Meyer in third. Although with a 44.54, that's going to be a tough position for him to hold on to as we see our stage crew come on to get things changed over really quickly. And we'll take a quick look at the Slo-Mo here as Alain David, really great job. And accuracy plays such a big role here. You have to have that power, but you also need to keep the accuracy really, really on point, because if you have the slightest change in angle on that axe, it could skip off the block, which is also a very dangerous situation. And there was the start of Julian Meyer on the backside of his block. He was quite late to come around compared to Alain David, so it took him a little bit longer to get through here. Boy, nice final cut though from Alain David with a 37.50, 2.98 seconds off the pace from Mark Müller. So again, a nice set of heats to start things off, and we could see that again, talking about the wood, it's fair, and that makes the sport very fair as well for these guys.
Yeah, but there is a various wood used, isn't it? For each discipline, there is a different wood, isn't there?
They're
like
all
it's
almost
differently prepared.
It's differently prepared because of the sizes of the blocks. Yes, that's very true, but they're almost all poplar wood from the poplar plantation that Bart Janssen has, and they take from this plantation. So they'll have one stand of trees that they use for a particular set of logs, but all the logs are prepared down to a particular point where that makes the sport for these guys really fair. And it really is about the sport for these guys, because if you see, they're working hard, you know?
Yes,
they're breathless after some of these heats, and then they've got to think about, okay, I got to save a bit of energy, but I got to put as much into this thing as I possibly can.
It's not easy.
So it's not easy. There's a lot of tactic behind all of this as well. It's not just I'm gonna go Cro-Magnon on the log here. You actually have to think about your timing, you have to think about the angle of the axe, and you have to really go into it with a little bit of thought process. So it's not just all muscle and brawn. All right, so our next heat number 3, Elie Pajar against Pierre Poisson. And, Poisson is a little bit taller than Pajar, and where the height plays a role here is the taller athlete can step back from the block a little bit farther, which means that the axe head will have more speed when it actually impacts the log. The thing that you have to think about there, and this was what we were talking about earlier, Pia, is when it impacts too hard, sometimes it can get stuck in there, or if the angle is just wrong, it'll skip off the block and spin away. So that takes away a cut possibility, and it's also dangerous, and yeah, that's something we got to keep an eye on here. All right, so Elie Pajar and Poisson in the mix now, Pierre-Louis Poisson. And both of these guys have respectable times. Pierre-Louis Poisson with a quicker personal best of 31.94 against Elie Pajar at 35.37, but it is Pajar moving over to the other side just ahead of Poisson, I believe. Yep, Poisson has now moved over to the other side of his block, a couple of strokes behind Pajar. And let's see how this plays out for Poisson, who's got a couple of really big hits there, using that length that he's got in his body to put a lot of power into the axe. And you also see that he's stepping off that back leg, twisting his hip, and oh, look at this. Pajar is coming close to blocking that thing. It's going to come down, maybe 1-2 more hits. Oh, but it's Poisson that gets there first with a 47.27, and Pajar with a 47.53. Nowhere near their personal best, but it was close at the end between the two of them. It makes it a little bit more exciting. Huh? Crazy. I thought it was going to be Pajar getting through there first, but that thing was wiggling on top, and then it was Poisson that got that final blow through and dropped the block off the top. Nice job. So Poisson and Pajar currently sitting in 4th and 5th place in the standing block chop as we will get ready for our next heat, heat number 4, between Alexandra Maurice and Christophe Larue. Now, Alexandre Maurice is strong in this discipline. You heard from the interview earlier on. He's going to try and take that top position from Puybare this year. He is motivated, and he has obviously been working hard. So we'll keep an eye on that heat number 4 as it comes up, as we take a look back here at heat number 3. And there is Pajar, Elie Pajar. Nice big slabs coming off in the first couple of hits, and then he just kind of got off pace there and then caught up again on the second side. This is the first side there from Poisson. And boy, he had a big slab come off there. Sometimes if a slab takes out a chunk from down low, it really causes problems. And you can see here, that thing is just wiggling on top, and this final blow on the far side from Poisson did it, and it was just a stroke behind for Pajar. So again, a really nice heat between these two. And now we move on to heat number 4 with Alexandra Maurice, who you heard from earlier in the interview, and Christophe Larue. Now, Alexandra Maurice has the advantage as far as personal best times, but could Christophe Larue be really on point today? Let's find out if he's got the nice wood.
3, 2, 1, go!
Good start by both of these guys. There's Maurice. Quick axe for him. Yeah, he's working it really nicely. He's a slight guy, but you can see he's got a lot of power. He's wiry. Larue on the other side, both of them moving over to the other side of their block now. Very nicely, quick. And these guys are not holding back at all in this one. You got to save a little bit of energy for later on. We still do have single buck and springboard coming. And oh my goodness, what a time for Alexandra Maurice, a 28:25. That is a top time, and Larue with a 33:82. So Alexandra Maurice moves into the top spot by about 5.57 seconds, and it is a nice time by Christophe Larue with a 33:53, and that puts him in 2nd place in this discipline. And that means you can see the orange score there on the right-hand side of their name. 1st place overall for Maurice, 10th place for Larue at the moment in the overall standings. In the standing block chop, Larue is currently sitting in 2nd place. As we take a look at the Slo-Mo here, Maurice, a little bit of a catch there on those first couple of hits. It's always those first ones that are a little bit tough, but that's one of the reasons why you'll often see these guys oiling the blade of their axe so that those first couple of hits can get those slabs out and make some space for the final cuts that they're going to make on the first side. And then after that, that oil is more or less gone, and they've got to depend on their skill as axemen to work the rest of the way through these blocks. But it was a great battle between these two. But Alexandra Maurice with just a fantastic attack of that block, and there you can see the final blow. He takes a look at the time, and he's going to be a bit pleased with that as he's sitting in 1st place in the standing block chop, and that also means he is 1st place in the overall standings as well. Let's not forget, too, we have 2 more heats to go, and that's going to change things in the standing block chop as well as in the overall standing. And you can see the orange lines of the guys coming up next in the heat, as well as Puybare and Pajar, who will be going against each other in heat number 6. So as they prepare the stage, we get to take a look back at this stuff a little bit more and talk about it.
Yeah, it's still a very, very exciting competition. But I got a question for all the people who are new to the sports. Like, you can switch sides once, but can you switch side a second time? Is it possible?
No, because they have to cut through the block from both sides. So they have to start on one side and then go back to the other side. So it wouldn't make sense to go back to the first side after you've cut through the back side, because then you're just wasting a lot of time. So the idea is to get a nice set of clean cuts through the first side. So on the back side, you're not having to cut through as much, so that the space that you're actually cutting becomes thinner. So, I mean, and I'm not sure about the ruling in this one. We would have to check the rule book if they're even allowed to go back over to the first side. But from an efficiency standpoint, they wouldn't do it just because it would be too slow.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go with heat number 5 with Cyril Marchal and Guillaume Moret. So, and if we take a look at those personal bests, they're not that far off from each other. And again, we talk about these personal bests between these guys often and how close they are. And if we look at the time differences between the first few guys, it's about 5 seconds off from top to second place, and then another 6 seconds to third place. And that third place by Mark Muller, by the way, is a personal best. So, you know, you see those things as not being great times as far as comparison to others, but when these guys make personal bests, it's also showing that there are improvements in their sport. So that's a good thing. And here we go with heat number 5. So Cyril Marchal right there in front of you, far side of the screen there is Guillaume Moret. And it looks like Marchal was the first one to move over to the other side, but Guillaume Moret was right there with them. And they're quick with their axes here today. Oh, a little bit of a funky skip there by Marchal. And he's got a wiggly block at the top. Nice time by Cyril Marchal, 27.90. That puts him in third place overall. Oh, yeah, great time by Cyril Marchal, and that puts him atop the standing block chop results. And Alexandra Maurice shifts down to second place here. And that was a really, really, really nice battle as Guillaume Moret with a 28.16 is now in third place in the standing block chop results. And Moret takes over first place in the overall standings at the moment with 33 points in total, with Alexandre Maurice and Cyril Marchal in second place tied with 27 points. Wow, this is looking really, really good in the overall standings. But let's not forget, we have heat number 6 coming up with Sebastian Masnada and Pierre Puybare. And taking a look at the Slo-Mo here, it was a really good start by both of these guys. Times were made official, no DQs so far in the competition, couple of personal bests. So this is a really good way to get into the competition here in France, and these guys are doing a great job. And Guillaume Moret and Cyril Marchal just really pushing each other on this particular heat. And you know these two guys had each other breathing down each other's necks on this one. Just one little skip there by Marchal somewhere in the backside here, but it didn't seem to matter too much as that thing was wiggling and waggling on top. And one stroke behind was Marchal as Moret was really quick. And now we go to heat number 6. And again, Pierre Puybare has the national record for the standing block chop. So that is going to be running through Sebastian Masnada's head. And you can see there he is, focused on that block. Pierre Puybare looking relaxed on the other side as he is ready to go. And you know he's confident, but never going to let anything go. As I said off the top of the show, he's a bit of a character behind the scenes, but once he gets on stage, he is all business. And you could see he's using his height to his advantage, really putting everything into those hits. And you watch, pushes off that back leg, twists those hips really hard. Look how quickly he is over to the other side. I don't know if we're going to see a personal best from Puybare today, but he is looking very, very strong here as he is well ahead on the other side. And wow, look at that! Pierre Puybare with a 22.74. That puts him atop the standing block chop results and in first place overall. Masnada, hey, that is a great time as well. 27.12, second place in the standing block chop, and that moves him into third place in the overall standings. That is a solid and respectful run for both of these guys here today in standing block chop. All right, so there you see a first overall for Puybare and a third overall for Masnada as we finish up the standing block chop and get ready for rounds 2. Unfortunately, we're going to lose 4 guys from the bottom of our list of athletes, and that's the way it goes with competition. So Pajar, Christophe Larue, Adrian Cortot, and Julian Meyer will be eliminated from competition. As we take a look back here at Puybare, I think he had maybe 8 or 9 hits on the front side and then decided, yeah, I'm going to go around to the backside and destroy this log proper style. And you can see here a couple of hits on the backside, and he just had one final clean blow, and that went straight through the block, and it was a super solid run for Puybare. And there it is. It's almost like he was hitting a baseball into the outfield. So standing block chop, we see Puybare at the top with a 22:37, a solid time for him. Not his best, but still very good. And Masnada sitting in second place. And we see Marshall and Maurice in third and fourth with Moret in fifth. So that's our top five as we take a look at the overall standings there with Pierre Puybare now 35 points up on top in the lead, but by only 4 points ahead of Moret. Masnada not far behind with 28 in third place. And we will see Pajar, Larue, Courteau, and Meyer unfortunately eliminated from competition as the top 8 will move on to round number 2, and the first discipline there will be single buck.
But before we will go to round number 2, we'll have an interview on site with Alain, and he's gonna interview Cyril Macha, who is the French national record holder of hot sauce. So be excited.
Hello Munich, on est de retour au Puy-en-Velay avec non pas le vainqueur, c'est pas passé loin. J'étais avec Cyril Marchal de la Lorraine. Il a failli gagner l'épreuve. Il est resté avec moi jusqu'à la dernière série et il s'est fait prendre le record par les concurrents de la dernière série.
C'est vrai. Bon, on y a cru jusqu'au bout, mais bon, c'est le sport, hein. C'est comme ça.
Voilà, en tout cas, ça t'a pas déçu parce que finalement, tu seras 3e?
Pas déçu du tout, je suis très très content.
Voilà, normalement, il devrait faire partie des qualifiés pour la suite de l'épreuve, avec un objectif, monter sur le podium.
J'espère bien, pour un retour, ça serait super.
Voilà, c'est tout ce qu'on te souhaite. En tout cas, bravo Cyril. Voilà, à vous Munich.
Merci. Thank you, Alain. So, Cyril Marchal said he isn't at all discontent, unhappy. Sorry, I've got a bit of language in my head. He is not unhappy with the third place. He's very, very happy with this ranking, and he still has some hope to be on the podium. And now, before we will go to the next discipline, we'll see a clip about Ford, who is our main sponsor. And honestly, it's my dream car. So let's have fun watching this clip.
The 2-meter-long cross-cut saw used for the single buck discipline is made especially for competition. A series of consistently patterned 10-centimeter-long teeth are cut with a laser on one side of the saw and then hand-sharpened. Saw teeth are divided into 2 types, cutters and rakers, just like on the old-school saws. The saw weighs about 5 kilos and its base price starts at around 1,500 euros. Single buck. The single buck is a one-man saw about 2 meters long. With this, the athletes have to cut off a complete disc of a 46 centimeter thick wooden block. The perfect interplay between rhythm and strength is the key to success.
Troy, the difficulty about this discipline is to not get it stuck in the wood, isn't it? Like the single block is really easily getting stuck.
Very much so. I mean, it's only a matter of millimeters of the angle of the saw. If you put it too much one way on the backstroke, it'll get hooked into the bottom piece of wood, or the same going through. And what you'll see, and we'll probably actually see it in this competition too, is when it gets stuck, the saw will bow. So you'll see a big bow in the saw, and then they have to restart the saw and keep the flow going. So what's really important here is to make sure that they start quickly and then get nice, long, steady strokes through this saw to have a good result.
Okay, so I'm excited how this will go, if there will be some DQs. And we're going to go on with the starting order. In the first heat, Pierre Poisson is competing against Alain David. In the second heat, Marc Mullet is against Cyril Marchal. And in the third heat, Alexandra Maurice will be against Sebastian Masnada. And in the last heat for this discipline, Guillermo against Pierre Puybare, the two people who are in the top first.
Yeah, those two guys are going to be really battling against each other hard as we get ready here for our first heat between Pierre Poisson and Alain David. And you can see here, that is a 2 meter long saw. It is not a light piece of equipment, and this is with a helper, so there's a different rule set for with a helper and without a helper. Now in this case, what you'll see is the wedger oiler, is the person there, will be able to put the wedge in the top of the block as they get the saw into the wood to make sure that the block doesn't bind on the saw, and they'll spray continuously to keep that fluid on the saw to make sure that it's lubricated enough to be able to slide through the wood easily as well. And you can see the wedges have gone in the top already, and Poisson has got a pretty good time going on there, and he's got a nice finish of 15.90. David, final cut there for him at 21.23, and that's a personal best for Poisson. So Pierre-Louis Poisson with a great start to our single buck, and that was some great flow. And Pia, perfect example right there. These guys got it started, they kept the flow going, and there was no sticking or bowing or anything. So it was a nice...
perfectly.
Yeah, they've done a perfect job there, and a lot of the athletes call this the misery whip, yeah? Because sometimes it can make them miserable. So yeah, these guys, I mean, respect for a personal best for Pierre Louis Poisson at 15.76.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. Alain David with a nice time of 20.81. So we have our first heat out of the way for the single buck. And you can see here, there is Poisson using the entire length of the saw. A lot of concentration right there. These guys are just all over it, but really great flow, and you can see he got a nice good start there. Oh, excuse me, that's Poisson there. Alain David is on the other side. These guys look almost alike. And you can see he's using the entire saw. The tip of the saw disappears into the wood, and then he gets all the way down to his knuckles, and that was the difference maker right there. He just had great flow, great strokes, and got through very nicely. All right, Marc Muller going up against Cyril Marchal, who you heard from earlier on in our interview as being the record holder for hot saw in France. Marc Muller, Cyril Marchal. Let's take a look at what their personal bests are. For the lead, 15.76, and personal best for Cyril Marchal is 16.13. So, yeah, we don't have a personal best for Marc Muller here, unfortunately, but Cyril Marchal, his personal best is 16.13. So he's not that far off of the 15.76 for the lead right now, if he can have a nice, clean run. Now you'll also see that our official is checking to make sure the alignment of the saw is correct. They have a special tool that's been specifically produced, and you'll see them place it on top of the log there to make sure that the saw is into a fair depth, and they check this on both saws before the start of the competition to be sure that everything is really even between the two athletes before the start. And now these saws have two different types of teeth as well. They have cutting teeth and sweeping teeth. So the sweeping teeth pull all the junk out of the cut, where the cutting teeth have done, obviously, their cutting job.
you allowed to put it out and in again if you get stuck? Or do you have to continue in a straight?
You can reset the saw if you want, but again, it's the same situation as going back to the
be
other
smart.
side. It's
Okay.
just time consuming, and again, it's all about just trying to get through this cut as quickly as possible. What you will see often is at the bottom of the cut, an athlete will twist the saw or it will bend a little bit, getting stuck, and the cookie will break. In that case, they have to reset the saw on this little tiny piece of wood at the bottom of the block and cut that without any support from the block that it's leaning against. So that's a really tough situation, and that's the only way that they can have a fair cookie on the ground, is to have a complete cut.
Okay. Athletes ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
So interesting situation here. Cyril Marchal on the far side of the screen opted to go for big long strokes right off the hop, and Mark Müller went for short choppy strokes, so he's not using the entire saw as much, but because of the speed, it looks like he's got a good time. But Cyril Marchal was just a bit faster with a 17.96. Nevertheless, Mark Müller has a personal best of a 18.44, so we got a couple of personal bests falling already, and again, that harkens to the guys improving themselves along the way as they go. They're making strides, they're making steps, they're improving their game as they go. So each time they improve, they see small gains in their sport, and that gives them that added motivation that they need to continue and get to the next level. So it's good to see, even though the time may not be good, an improvement is always good. And to be quite honest with you, an 18.77 against a 17.62 is not a bad time. I mean, you know, the best time at the moment is 15.76, so they're only 2.5, 3 seconds off pace here. As we take a look at that choppy, quick start there by Mark Müller, and on the far side there you see the long strokes from Cyril Marchal. So two different styles completely. Cyril Marchal was just a bit more efficient with the use of his saw and got through 1.86 seconds faster than Mark Müller. And that's a learning experience right there for Mark Müller. He may take the video of this and go back and say, okay, what do I have to do to improve and make another personal best? So these are things that these guys will do off time and off season to make sure that they're really ready for the next set of heats. And as we take a look at single buck so far with 2 heats out of the way, Poisson up top with a personal best as well as the fastest time, the time to beat so far of 15.76. Cyril Marchal with a nice heat right there with a 17.62, and then Mark Müller with an 18.77 and a personal best, and that changes our overall rankings a little bit as well. Cyril Marchal now moves into the top just ahead of Puybare. Mark Müller slipping into 3rd place there, but for sure those positions will change as we get through the other heats in the single buck with 2 more heats to go. All right, so we heard from this man earlier on, Alexandra Maurice, who is absolutely fired up to be the #1 guy here today. He's going up against Sebastian Masnada, and it should be a really good heat. And I want to see how Maurice handles this big misery whip, because he is a slight man, as I said, not the tallest guy out there. But that motivation can really make a difference. And notice Pierre Puybare is the helper for Masnada. Oh, Maurice with a chunky start. Masnada had a much better start, and now he's getting into his flow. Maurice really needs to work that saw, but Maurice has got a nice long stroke. He's really stepped it up, and it looks like he might actually get through first, and he does do it. He has got a time of 17.16 even after that terrible start, and Masnada with an 18.65. Wow, what a comeback from Maurice. It almost looked like that saw skipped out of the top of the slit that they made, but it was so terrible. The start was horrendous. Unbelievable. We take a look at that start in the Slo-Mo again, I hope, because that was an ugly start, but what a finish by Maurice.
Can you believe it? He was injured in January and he couldn't train as much, but now he's so good.
Yeah, he loves mountain biking. He loves being out in the nature, and he's highly motivated and trains hard. So
I
obviously,
think the motivation.
Yeah, that injury in January, that obviously messes with your head, but he is such a competitor, and he's so fit. And you see, like I said, he's a small guy, but watch this start by Maurice. It was a bit of a stick there, an ugly start, and then he finally got that saw moving. And once he got it moving, you can see he was using the entire saw. The tip of the saw disappears into the wood, whereas you didn't see that as much in the first few strokes on the right side of your screen there for Masnada. And that was a difference maker. Maurice just put a lot more into it and got the results that he wanted. All right, so now the big man, Pierre Puybare, against Guillaume Moret. Now, I'm going to say Pierre Puybare isn't the strongest single bucker, although his time would indicate otherwise. His personal best time of 11.04, I think it was. I forget now. But Guillaume Moret, Pierre Puybare, these guys are a little bit mismatched in the single buck, but experience is such a huge factor here. And we know that Pierre Puybare, that man right there, has got a lot of experience, not only on the national stage, but on the international stage as well. And you can see Pierre Puybare, again, he's a very, very tall man, standing at, I believe, 1.98 m.
Okay. Athletes ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Oh, big stick by Puybare there as Moret has got nice flow going on. Excuse me, 1.90 m for Pierre Puybare. I had to double check that. 1.98 m is pretty massive. But hey, I barely breathed, and these guys have both gotten through their cookies. Moret with a personal best at 14.90 and Pierre Puybare with a 14.70. So that's a really close heat, and both of those guys are in the top two spots in the single buck. So that is a great result. Again, not as fast today for anybody, but I'm sure that the wood is playing a factor there, and I can't reiterate enough how fair the wood seems to have been throughout the entire day of competition so far. Everybody really, really close in their heats, so that says a lot. All right, so Moret with a personal best, an official time of 15.54. Pierre Puybare, they actually shifted those times now in a 14.49. So these guys are sitting in first and second after single buck with their results in single buck as we take a look back at the Slo-Mo here. And that looks like that's Moret's saw. No, excuse me, that's Puybare with that first stick in the top there. Oh no, that is Moret, excuse me. So they both got a stick at the top of the block, and there you could see it was just a stroke to a half stroke difference between these two guys. Great battle though in the single buck, fantastic.
Now we'll hear an interview I'm really looking forward to. It's the second place in the single buck, but also in the overall standing and a personal best. And he's been training since he's a young boy, because his father was an athlete as well. Well, let's go on site to Alain. We'll see what he has to say.
Rebonjour Monique, on est de retour au puits en volet puisque vient de s'achever à l'instant même l'épreuve de single buck et je suis en compagnie du dauphin du vainqueur, Guillaume Moret, qui est haut-savoyard et qui vient de presque créer l'exploit. C'est passé tout près de la victoire.
Ouais, j'ai manqué un petit peu de vitesse pour battre Pierre, mais la prochaine sera la bonne.
Il est quand même super puissant ce Pierre Puybare, mais tu as été très impressionnant là.
Ouais, il est très performant, il faut aller le chercher, vraiment, c'est un bon scieur, mais je ne perds pas espoir.
Voilà, il te reste deux belles épreuves pour, pourquoi pas, la plus haute marche du podium.
C'est l'objectif, après le springboard, ce n'est pas mon épreuve favorite, mais je vais tout donner.
Merci en tout cas Guillaume et bonne chance pour la suite. À vous Monique.
Thank you, Alain. Moret just said that he is a bit sad that he lost this 1 second, because then he would have beaten Puybare, which he hasn't now, but he doesn't lose hope. He still has some hope, even though springboard, the next discipline, is not his favorite, but he'll give his best. And what are you thinking about? I think the next discipline is just amazing. It's my favorite discipline, to be honest, because it looks so cool.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, this is an old school discipline from back in the day that they used to get up into a tree, so they cut the top off the tree. But I tell you what, it's a tough one. And if we take a look at the single buck ranking there, Pierre Puybare on the top, sort of expected, but Guillermo and Pierre Poisson also in the mix there in the top 3 positions, and both I guess I should say his name correctly now that I've heard it right, more, with personal best. So that's a great job. And in the overall standings, it switches around a little bit. Poisson is down in 6th place at the moment, so he is in the mix, but Puybare still on top.
Well, now we will watch a few of the highlights of the single buck in slow motion, I guess, and not. So I am excited to see those. The best bits of this
get to
discipline.
really see the nuances of this 2 meter long single buck cutting saw. I mean, it's
not easy to see if you only see the whole.
Yeah, I mean, and also getting in really close on these things, you could see the concentration that these guys put in, and look at the amount of power they had to use just to draw that saw back to get the thing going. The starting of the saw is the crucial point. Once it's going, as long as you can keep that flow and keep that saw moving, then you've got such a difference in how easy it is to cut through there. But if that saw stops at all during any of these cuts, then it makes it really difficult to restart the thing, because it's such a heavy beast to restart in there, especially if that block is binding on it at all, squishing on it. So that's one of the reasons why they have the helper there with the wedge in the top to make sure that it doesn't bind on it. It's an insane discipline, and as far as it's concerned as what the skill level is needed there, it's one of the most difficult, because it's just nuances here and there. I believe this was the heat with Puybare and Guillermo. I think that's Puybare on the right-hand side. I can't tell from this angle, but nevertheless, you could see. No, this was a different heat altogether, I believe. Maurice. That's with the heat with Maurice and Masnada. And that's where he came from behind with such a fantastic second effort after a really, really chunky start. And there you could see a really good example of drawing the saw through the wood completely. And that was that final stroke from Pierre Puybare in his heat that got him the top time of the day of 14.49. He's such a two type of person, Pierre Puybare. Off the scene, he is so funny in the background. He's such a character, teasing the guys, always messing around, like we saw off the top of the show with playing around Salt Bay style and smiling and having fun. But the minute he gets on stage, his whole we say visage changes, and he's like, I'm all serious and bad and mean. But he's such a nice guy, and you wouldn't know to look at him on stage. But that's the competitive nature that these guys have. They get up there and it's all business, and then when things are done, it's like hugs, kisses, and let's have a beer together. It's good.
Yeah, speaking of competition, this will not be the only competition we will watch in this season. No, there are a lot of competitions coming up next. Next week, on the 31st of July, the Rookie European Championship is gonna take place in Munich, as well as the European Trophy. Afterwards, also, I'm really looking forward to this one, because I think that's even huger. Afterwards, on the 7th of August, there's going to be the European Nations Cup, also in Munich, and on the 8th, the Austrian Pro Championship with my people. I'm excited to see the Austrian guys doing it.
Yeah, it's back-to-back competitions, 2 weekends in a row, and there's a ton of stuff happening, so it's great.
And afterwards, on the 21st of August, there's a German Pro Championship in Gelsenkirchen, which will be interesting as well, don't you think? What is following?
Well, I mean, anything can happen in the next competitions coming up. There's a ton of action coming our way, so make sure you tune in and check it out. There's going to be the live streams as well as a ton of stuff to see and do where STIHL TIMBERSPORTS is concerned. And I mean, the rookies are coming up. This is the future of the sport. These are the guys that you're going to see down the road who are going to be making the big strides. And they've added a few nuances to the rookie competitions this year as well to give them one more gain of experience coming into the pro level, because previously springboard wasn't included in the rookies. And now my understanding is that they are going to add springboard in. So that's going to be a new challenge for the rookies, which is going to make those competitions even more exciting. And speaking of the springboard, that's coming up in our second part of the second round here today. So discipline number 2 is the springboard.
But before we will go to the springboard, we will watch some highlights of the Rookie Championship, because today, just before our championship now, there was a Rookie Championship in France with not only French people competing, but also Swiss and Italian guys. And let's have a watch how it went.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, to note that there are Swiss, Italian, and French competing in this rookie championship. And, you know, these guys all doing a great job. And you can see the skill level of these young dudes is really on point. And with all of the rookies, and I mean, I say young dudes, as some of them are quite young, but some of them have, you know, made it into the middle of the pack. There, Michel Perrin is in that mix right there. We also had Swissman Oliver Reinhardt. He's a perennial winner at these rookie events. He's so strong. And, yeah, of course, Loïc Poisson from France. He got 3rd in the rookies today. So you'll see him competing in the future in the pro level. And a lot of really, really great young talent coming out. We just saw the sock saw really quickly. You know, Michel Perrin, 2nd place there. Oliver Reinhardt in 4th place. And a lot of action going on. All right, and as you see, lots of action, and there's also some controversy on stage. You saw the yellow flag there, so that means they're going to check the position. And so far in our competition today, Pierre, we haven't seen any action where the yellow flag has come down and no DQs. So it's been a clean competition so far. We've seen a few personal bests, but the rookies is where it's at, coming down the road and in the future. And enjoy the images here and some of the video from the rookie. We're going to take a bit of a break here until we get into our springboard competition for the pros.
Your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
classification puissant. Allez, Sébastien, allez.
Allez, encore, Sébastien.
Both got on hook.
14-26. Bon, ça c'est fait, Loïc. Loïc s'installe en tête du classement.
Les suiveurs sont installés. On vous l'a dit, on est là pour vous gâter. On vous offre un super show Timbersport, mais aussi quelques goodies tout au long de la journée. Et à rencontrer, n'hésitez pas à poser vos questions. Et moi, je suis là pour vous gâter. Aujourd'hui, c'est parti, levez les bras. Allez, 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 allez. Go, go, go.
Effort, ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Allez, leader, c'est deux hommes qui s'affrontent maintenant. On se met dans les très attentifs. Le côté droit avec le Poisson que l'on peut encourager. Le jeune français est parmi les meilleurs de la journée. Il faut absolument qu'il conserve le haut du classement. Allez, le Poisson qui progresse bien en sortie de voie.
Joli coup de hache des deux côtés. Chacun s'en va. Les copeaux rouges, joli chrono pour Loïc. Allez Lucas, allez.
Lucas Schott qui devrait faire un bon temps.
Lucas qui s'est peut-être un peu enfermé dans sa coupe. Oh, quoique non. La charnière est bien formée. Super. À ces deux derniers coups, souvent, en fonction de comment notre charnière absorbe la hache.
Ouais, dommage. Ça tournait un peu vite.
Gentlemen, both got on hook.
Les équipes sont validées.
Ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Et l'arbitre peut sursauter. J'espère qu'il y a pas de coup de barre. En tout cas, c'est lancé pour ces deux hommes. Le Suisse est le premier tourné, suivi de très près par l'Italien. On regarde le chrono.
Regardez-moi ce joli coup de hache. Tout est bien ficelé, tout est bien posé.
Ah, c'est mieux pour l'Italien. Et 27,69, c'est mieux également pour l'athlète suisse.
Ok, c'est pas rectifié par les caméras. Le chrono était juste.
Voilà, il me semblait.
Gentlemen, both got on hook.
Parfait.
27,73 pour l'athlète suisse et 25,93 désormais meilleur temps à battre.
Effort, ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
C'est lancé.
Allez les garçons, allez public, c'est la dernière série de ce matin. Encouragez nos sportifs qui ont fait de longues heures de route pour pouvoir venir à cette compétition.
Est-ce que ça va être énorme? On est tout près. Oui, c'est fini pour le Suisse. 22,35. Olivier est à la hauteur de sa meilleure performance personnelle. 29,20 pour Alexandra. On attend la correction parce que si c'est mieux que 22,32, ça constituera sa meilleure performance de l'année. Eh oui!
Gentlemen, both got on hook.
Parfait, on vous a pas avancé le classement intermédiaire justement pour mettre le suspense jusqu'à la fin. Quelques secondes maintenant pour avoir les résultats des sets. Regardez avec nous, partagez notre sport, regardez-nous sur l'équipe 21. L'équipe 21 qui est tombée amoureuse des Timbersport et grâce à eux, très sportifs professionnels. Vous serez tous là cet après-midi, puis en venez. Un apéro, un petit grignotage et on veut bien.
Encore avant les remises de récompense à nos jeunes. La deuxième place.
La deuxième place, c'est pour l'Italien.
All right, so the perennial guys that are on stage here in third place, Loïc Voisson. There you see Michel Perrin in second place, the Italian lad, happy to be up on the block in second there, and Switzerland's Oliver Reinhardt in first place. And as I said, a perennial winner. This kid has got some skills. Absolutely fantastic job. Great job by all of the three rookies there.
And we've made a bit of a shorter break because the athletes are already ready for the next discipline. And to make sure that you know what the discipline is about, we'll have a clip introduction about springboard.
Springboard. Springboard simulates the traditional way of felling trees, climbing up over thick roots. First, notches known as pockets are chopped into the log. 2 springboards are then anchored into these pockets. The athlete then climbs up to chop through a 27 centimeter thick block of wood in the fastest time possible.
So now we'll have a look at the starting list of the second discipline of the second round. In the first heat, Pierre Poisson will be competing against Alain David. In the second heat, Marc Mullet is going to battle against Cyril Machal. In the third heat, Alexandra Maurice against Sebastian Masnada. And in the fourth heat, Guillermo against Pierre Puybare.
All right, and this one's a really important one. Just like as we had in the standing block chop, the springboard is a very important discipline for all of these top 6 athletes or top 8 athletes to move on to the top 6 positions, which will go on to our hot saw, which is a crazy discipline. That's coming later on, though. But in the meantime, this is a very finicky discipline. I like to call this the cat of all of the disciplines. You got to set a pocket, set your board in, get up on that board, and then set a second pocket and your second board before you can start cutting the block on top. And that's a big deal. Now, as we see here, right away, we've got a board in, but it's looking a little bit saggy. He second guesses the hold of that board, and that's going to cost him time to set his first pocket properly. Here is a great example of a good, solid, stable board. It's got a nice deep angle on it. Now he's finally got that block set, and Poisson and David going at each other again. And now setting the second pocket on the right-hand side of your screen, Alain David and Pierre-Louis Poisson trying to get those pockets set properly. Now, this is a really critical stage, getting that second one set. You want to make sure that board is stable, because you're up a good 1.5 meters to 2 meters with a sharp object in your hand. It's kind of like running around a bar after you've had too many beers with scissors in your hands. So you want to make sure you're safe on that second board. Pierre-Louis Poisson getting that second board in gingerly up on top there. And here's where it gets really interesting. Now, if you get an angle to take a look at the board on the left-hand side of your screen, that's Pierre-Louis Poisson. He has got a bit of a dip in his board. That means he can't put as much pressure on that back foot to solidly swing through by pushing off of it and swing through the hips. So he's got to use more of his upper body, which is tiring. There's a great angle. You can see how that board is dipping down, and he can't use his hips as much, so he's got to use his shoulders and his arms to cut the block. Now, both of these guys are going to try and cut through deep on the first side so that they don't have to do as many cuts on the back side with that really odd angle. And there's a perfect example of how the angle of the axe played a role in the positioning and how it sprung away on Poisson a little bit. Alain David has moved over to taking hits on the backside, and you can see the time is running away. Now, if they don't get these blocks off by 2 minutes 30, the time is automatically stopped, and they will be DQ'd for not finishing in the allotted amount of time. But it looks like we might get through here, at least for Alain David. And it looks like Poisson has also done a good job to try and catch up, but David may well make it through. It's a couple of more hits here. Boy, it's really coming down to the wire for both of these guys as we've just passed the 20-second mark after 2 minutes. And, oh, it's 2 minutes 20, not 30, so that is a timeout, and it looks like Poisson has actually done it. Excuse me, my mistake. 2 minutes 21 is the time that Poisson dropped the block, and we have a DQ because of overtime for Alain David. That's unfortunate because Alain David was very good getting his pockets and his board set, and Poisson struggled to get his first board set. So these are areas where these guys can improve, is just getting those first springboards set so that they can be really comfortable up in their positions for what's important up on the top of those blocks. Yeah, and if I spoke over our head judge there. He just said DQ out of time. So 2 minutes 30 seconds is the time limit for springboard. And Pierre-Louis Poisson just getting it in just in time to get some points out of this particular discipline. And we can see here setting that first board. Now watch when he tests it. This is sagging way too much. So he decides, okay, I'm going to reset that pocket. Ideally, a 4 to 6 hit pocket is all you need, and then put the board in. There you see Alain David clearing out the slough from his second pocket, and he'll set that second board. Now, he was quick getting up onto those two boards. He was on his second board by 45 seconds, but here is where everything sort of went wrong, as he just took too much time to cut through the block on the top. And if you see on the backside, there is Poisson getting those final blows and finally gets through in 2:21.56. And this is a very tiring discipline. You have to imagine. These guys are climbing, chopping, climbing, chopping, and chopping, and chopping, and you're chopping at an odd angle as well. So, yeah, it's a tough one for these guys. So our next heat up, Marc Müller against Cyril Marchal. And we often talk about it as well. Are the heavier guys having more trouble on these than the lighter guys? Yes and no. Yeah, this is a question that comes up quite often. If a guy is 130 kilos and 2 meters 5 tall, then he's going to have more trouble on those blocks at the top, right? Well, not always. Depends on how well they set their pockets, because these springboards hold a ton of weight.
I think they just have to really manage their balance good.
Yeah.
Like, they have to manage it well, because they have my whole respect. With my clumsiness, I would fall off the first thing right after a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough discipline. It's really, really hard. It's like a traditional discipline. It's really old school. And, you know, setting these pockets, you need to be super accurate, and you need to set them well. Now, there is a really nice pocket from Marchal, and he's up on that board. It's got a great angle, and he can really use the push off that back foot to set his second pocket. Now, sometimes these guys will overthink their pockets, and they'll hit a few too many times, whereas a first 4, 5, 6 hits is enough, and they can clear out the slough and then set their board. But they are, I mean, you can see both of these guys are really overthinking their pockets at this point. And this is as much a head game as it is a physical and technical game. So there's Marchal, and again, he's got a good angle on his board, but he's 47 seconds in as he got to the top, and this is the same situation that Alain David ran into. So now he's got to be really efficient and clean on the top. Ooh, almost a little bit of a loss of balance there. And Müller has now finally started working on his block. But you can see the angle difference between these two boards. On the right-hand side, Marchal's got a good 25, 30-degree angle, and Müller has the board sagging down significantly. So all of his power is coming from his shoulders and his arms, and that means he's not getting as much power into the block as he could, as we've just passed the minute 25-second mark here. And Marchal is now working on the backside of his board. He switched his foot position on, block. He's switched the foot position on the board, and looks like he's doing well on the backside there. Müller, oh, that board is just sagging like crazy, and Marchal finally drops it in 1:41.77. So that's going to be the fast time so far today. Again, can't tell you how much respect I have for these guys, and being up 2 meters in the air with that razor-sharp axe and having to cut away this block. It is just insane, the skill level that's required. And this is also one of the reasons why they've added this discipline into the rookie competition, because previously the rookies would come into the pro competition and be thrown to the wolves, basically, having to step onto the springboard. And now they're going to get an opportunity to compete in it in a couple of times before they actually make the pro competition to get some experience, which is everything in this particular discipline. And that's a DQ for Marc Müller. That is unfortunate. And that's the first 2 DQs in our competition so far, Pia, which is actually really good.
Yes,
Normally we're having DQs a little bit earlier on in the competition for a cut line or a incomplete cookie or something like that. But so far, this competition's been on point. But this is
fifth discipline, and now they're DQs.
This is the first 2 DQs in the 5th discipline, and it's only because of time. That's it.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. So, I mean, these guys are really doing a fantastic job.
Are there a lot of ways to get disqualified in this discipline?
In this discipline, disqualification usually comes from overtime, more often than not. Sometimes it might have to do with an incomplete cut or how the cut is done on the top. That's the other discipline DQ that we've seen here, is if the guy twists the axe to make the final cut to block off the head of or the block on top. That's the only other thing that could DQ them. But really, it's about the time here, and that's about it. I mean, once you're up there and cutting, it's just a matter of the time. And there you can see Mark Müller. His first couple of hits, he had to get himself set properly, and it was really all about the board for Mark Müller. And there you see Cyril Marchal. He had a pretty good time there with a 141.77. It was officially changed to a 141.56, so a little bit of an improvement there with the competition control center making a final evaluation. And there you see our, we've got a personal best there for Poisson as well at 2:21.56. So again, the time isn't awesome. He's really close to the DQ time, but he's got a personal best, and it's a fantastic thing to say, okay, I've made some improvement. So that's a very good thing for us. And then in the overall standings, we could see Pierre Puybare still on top. So it's going to be fun to watch the rest of this particular competition unfold before we get to hot saw.
Well, everything is still very thrilling. Yeah. And we've talked already about the rookies, the future of timber sports. And there is a rookie academy. This year it has taken place in the Netherlands, in Halen. And I think it's the best way to prepare for the real competitions, like to compete against other professionals. It's called Rookie Competition. It's a training camp. And you will have more information after this clip.
Today we are at Bart Jensen's training camp in Holland, the rookie training camp.
It's a great experience because there are 3 national champions, Hans-Ove Hansen, Christoph Geisler, Martin Komarek, so it's fantastic.
I feel better prepared. It's nice to have 3 champions who he has for the training is I think the best way to grow up and to do stronger and better.
The knowledge of the experienced athletes, that's the key how we can move the sport and the new generation forward.
There is a lot of good rookies here today. They are a little bit tensed, they are a little bit nervous, but the level is high. So I'm looking forward to see the competition.
I hope when the athletes go home tomorrow night, they are excited for the next competition. They had some experience this weekend. They learned special things about the wood and equipment, and they feel well for the real big competitions.
At this rookie academy, the athletes, the rookies, are trained by professionals, by athletes. And I think it's amazing how much knowledge they can get from this. And also you see a lot of names, like they're familiar to you because pros have the same names because they're kids who are there. Isn't it crazy? They're as young as I and they're so strong.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's amazing.
I mean, you saw Martin Komarek and Bart Janssen. These are all guys that have been involved in the sport for years and years and years. And they're actually taking these younger guys under their wing because it was previously, as we mentioned, you normally think about rookie and they're 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, and that wasn't necessarily the way. We saw a lot of rookies in their late 20s and early 30s, but now it's shifting back to the other way. Just like you said, Pia, they're young and they're really strong, and this is one more opportunity for these younger guys to get that experience and learn from the legends in the sport. We saw Hans-Ove Hansen there from Sweden. We saw, as I said, Martin Komarek there from the Czech Republic. These are guys that have years and years of experience.
It's an amazing opportunity.
That's absolutely correct. It's an amazing opportunity, and this is going to be the future of the sport for the long time to come. And you could see these young guys
it's definitely a family sport. It is.
Yeah.
But it's not only a family sport. STIHL Timbersports is also an extreme sport. And it has such a long history. And you will know more about the history and the roots, which are really branched in timber sports now, because we prepared a clip for you.
Expert woodsman who can cut down a tree more easily than most people can chop one up. When it really comes to tackling large lumps, you can't beat the men of the forestry companies.
An axeman's gathering.
This is Thomas losing the most that gets it.
All right, so springboard heat number 3 coming up with Alexandra Maurice and Sebastian Masnada. So you can see their personal bests are around the 1 minute and just over the 1 minute mark. So it should be interesting to see how these guys stroke out in this one. And yeah, again, it's about setting those pockets. Now, Alexandra Maurice, highly motivated today. He is currently sitting in 5th place in the overall standings. It's an opportunity here for him to make sure he's among the top 6 with a good score. But he's got to have a good score. And there you see Masnada getting those pockets set. Oh boy, Maurice up on that first board really quickly. So he had a super efficient first pocket. And he's got a 4-hit second pocket. This is looking good for Maurice as he gets his second board set. Is he happy with it? He seems to be. Crawls up on top, and he'll start working on the top block really quickly. Maurice has obviously been taking time to really train for this particular discipline, one of the most difficult disciplines. Masnada finally gets his second board set after clearing some slough out of the space there. And now he is up on top, and it's an opportunity here for Maurice to really take this one down. But Masnada, he's got a good board position, and he's a big man with lots of power. So can he catch up to Maurice? Maurice is really deep on the first side. Oh, Masnada having problems. That board is sagging. He is in real trouble now as he's got to reset that pocket. And it's going to be Maurice already working the backside. It won't be long now before he gets through. Obviously completely winded, though, as he gets to the top there. And now Masnada back on top after having to reset that board. That's a big problem for him. And Maurice has finally gone through with a 1:20.33 in springboard. And that's the fast time so far in springboard. And that means he will springboard up to the top of the overall standings. Oh, did you get that little one? No pun intended, or maybe yes. And it's Masnada still struggling to get through there, passing the 140 mark here. And this was all due to the fact that he had to go back and reset the pocket for his second springboard. The minute he got up there and started adding a little bit of weight, that thing started to sag and it just kept moving on him. And that's dangerous when you're up 2 meters in the air with that axe in hand. You don't want that thing falling out. You just never know what's going to happen. But look at that. Look at the job he's done. 2:02.57. And, I mean, you have to imagine that had he kept on that springboard, he might have even been able to catch up with Alexandra Maurice. But, yeah, no such luck in this one. That's the name of the game. So Sebastian Masnada still a very respectable time with 2:02.57, sitting in 3rd place in the springboard with one more heat to go. And that's between Guillermo, and I finally said his name right twice, I hope, and Pierre Puybare. All right, I had a little bit of worry about that last cut by Masnada, if that was going to be like a twist cut, like I mentioned to you earlier, Pia, that could be disqualification. But our head judge, Bart Janssen, said both cuts are good, so that means it's official. His time will stand at 2:02.51. And Alexandra Maurice with a 1:19.80. That's the time to beat at the moment. But the next heat coming up with Guillaume Moret and Pierre Puybare, who I have to mention, Pierre Puybare has one of the fastest times in France with a 55.07 on the springboard. So keep an eye on that. But look how quickly Maurice got that board in. He was confident from the get-go. Now watch the number of hits he takes on the second one. Now we don't get to see it, of course. And that's unfortunate, but he had a really nice, quick second pocket. I believe it was 4 hits. He set the board, he had a good angle, and then he just got to work on it. And here we see Masnada. He took the board out, he had to reset it, and unfortunately for him, that cost a lot of time. But if you look at how quickly Masnada actually got through that top block, I believe that he could have actually caught up to and maybe even beat Maurice. But that's another one for, the woulda, coulda, shoulda books. And there's a moment, by the way, Pia, where Maurice cut through the first side, did a few hits on the backside, and then cut through the first side again.
So it is allowed.
So it is allowed, but you have to at least cut from both sides.
Okay.
And then he just decided, okay, I'll do a few hits back here and cut through. So it's okay. Springboard heat number 4. And as I said, Pierre Puybare with a 55.07 personal best compared to Guillaume Moret with a 135.81 personal best. I think we can safely say here the advantage goes to Pierre Puybare, the reigning national champion. But Guillaume Moret, a very motivated dude today, and he's been solid up until this point. Moret is currently sitting in 5th place, having not done the springboard yet. So if he can get even a halfway decent time in the springboard, he will be moving up in the ranking for sure. As long as he doesn't get a DQ, though, he should be safe to move on to the next round. All right, so these guys are really quick already. Pierre Puybare has got that second pocket. He's working on that one, and it looks like Moret has finally got his first board in and will get up there and set the second pocket. And Puybare has already got his second pocket in place with the board in place, and now he'll get working on the top. He's 28 seconds in, and he's already on that top block, so that's a very good sign for Puybare. Maurice making sure that second board, or more, making sure that second board is in position. But again, you see the board is sagging a bit and it's slipping down, and he can feel it. Hopefully he won't fall out of that thing, but it's really sagging a lot. Each time he takes a stroke, that board slips out some more. So I'm really concerned about the way that board is looking. If it goes down any more, it may slip out, and we definitely don't want to see that. Meanwhile, Puybare drops it in 101.33. Again, consistently good wood. So fair all around. Holy smokes, look at the sag on that board. Yeah, he's got to go down and reset that. That's going to cost him a ton of time. He's already at 115, and we may have trouble as far as the DQ situation is concerned for Maurice, as he really has to get moving if he wants to have a time and have some points. Otherwise, he may be in trouble with a DQ and 0 points in this discipline. But he's up again at 136 and starting back on the first side of that block. Now, he's got to get deep, do a couple of cuts on the backside, and make sure he gets through. Remember, 2 minutes 30 is the timeout for this discipline. Guillermo on top, hitting hard. Pressure's on. We're really rooting for him to get some points here and make sure that he has enough points to maybe move up a little bit. 30 seconds to go here before the time runs out. Even Pierre Puybare is rooting him on from the other side. He switches foot position and starts working on the backside. And again, that board is sagging. Oh my God, what a terrible situation for Maurice. That board looking terrible. Hopefully he can get through inside of 15 seconds. And again, geez, that is just crazy. He's got 7 seconds to break that thing off the top. Hopefully he can do it. He does it! He does it! Oh, how close was that? 2:28.04. Oh, my goodness. Oh!
That was crazy.
That was crazy. He had to take the board out, go down, reset the thing, go back up. How about a hair splitter right there? Ay.
And I was really scared that he would slip off this board.
No! I thought that board was going to come out and axe parts were going to be flying everywhere.
And it's dangerous as well.
Yeah, it's
like the
very
axe is
dangerous.
so sharp.
I mean, first of all, the axe is heavy. Second of all, it's sharp. You don't know what your body is going to do. If that thing comes out and you fall, you could just go and throw the axe. I mean, and if that happens, somebody else could get injured, not just you, right? Yeah. So you've got to really be on top of your game. And that was just crazy. Let's take a look at this slow-mo again here. There we see Pierre Puybare shifted to the backside. Look how clean those cuts are on the first side, though. Looks like it was cut by a machine. That's how accurate and strong he is, and it took him barely any time at all to get through the backside. So that was a good run for Puybare. And then we see Maurice. Look at that sagging board, and a couple of hits here, and he goes like, no, I got to get down. And this is what really killed his time right here. He had to reset the board. And then here you see the angle again starting to sag once again, but a couple more hits on the backside and he can be relieved that he's going to have some points. It's not going to be awesome points, but nevertheless, he's going to have some points. And in fact, he had points enough to get him into 6th place in the springboard competition, and that means he moves up into 2nd place in the overall standing. So looking at the springboard, Pierre Puybare, yeah, that's clear with a 101.31. And then we see Maurice in 2nd place with his 119.80. And then, the overall standings, Puybare is still on top. Mort in 2nd place, Maurice in 3rd place, Marchal in 4th. And Masnada. Then we have Poisson in 6th place. So those are the guys that are going to be moving on to the final round, and that's the hot saw.
So the next round, they are so... Guillermo?
Yeah, I know.
It's not easy to pronounce. It isn't.
I want to say Moret, but there's no accent grave.
Yeah. So he just said he really wishes to succeed in this discipline, even though he isn't as good, but he did manage to come to the final round.
Yep, he managed to do it. I think he would have been safe anyway because he was in 5th place when before going in there. So even with a DQ, he might have been there. It would have been possible, but still, you want to have the time. Yeah, and he made it just by the hair of his chinny chin chin, though. What a nail biter that was. It was crazy. And that board was hanging down big time. So, I mean...
I've had goosebumps all over my body.
Yeah, I would have been making bricks back here if I was in that position with an axe in my hand like that. I mean, it's just nuts. It's just nuts.
So before we will go on to the last and final round, we will have an interview with the wood expert, who is as well the man who decides if the cut's good or bad, Bart Jansen. And now I'll hand over to you, Alain, on site.
Hello, Monique. We are coming back to Le Puy-en-Velay with Mr. Bart Jansen. Bart, what can you tell me about the wood?
It's very important to have the same wood for everybody, so it's not easy to have the same conditions always. But today I'm very, very happy with the wood. It's consistent, and we didn't see a lot of problem knots, so yeah.
Okay. And second question, you are the referee of this competition. What are you thinking? It's a good competition?
I think it's a very exciting competition. Close. Then this one's leading, then the other one leading. So we will see the hot saw last event. That will be very exciting. We will see who wins.
Okay, thank you. Coucou Monique, au revoir. Bye bye. À tout à l'heure.
Thank you, Alain. So Bart Jansen just said he is excited for the final round. Well, I am as well. This is just crazy. I've tried to pick up one of these machines of the hot sauce. It's not manageable. It is so heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm not that weak. I look weak, but I'm not that weak.
I don't consider myself exactly a small person either, but I mean, I lifted up Danny Ma's saw here in studio one time, and it is a beast, and I can't even imagine if the thing was running and shaking and rattling. I mean, it's madness.
Mad. But we wouldn't be able to make those, but probably we would with the springboard. Like, I want to try it one time, but let's continue with the highlights of the springboard. I'm excited to see those because that was a crazy discipline.
It was crazy discipline.
It was.
Yeah. You could see here, I mean, again, it's all coming down to placing of those boards. And, a couple of times we saw, yep, don't like that board, going to reset my pocket. And, what I was mentioning is this is the cat discipline. You know, it's
kitty cat, as
the
you often
kitty
call
cat
it.
discipline. It's finicky. You know, I don't like that food. I'm not going to eat it. Go away. No, but seriously, I mean, you have to have cat-like reflexes to put that board in and be on top, and then be able to set another pocket and do the whole thing all over again on the top to cut the block down. So, you know, respect to these guys, because generally timber sport athletes are not exactly small individuals. You know, they're usually pretty strong, pretty heavy, pretty solid boys. You know, sitting in and around my weight class generally. You know, and to put these boards up and really set them and get on top there and then do what they're doing there, you could see it's just not easy, and that's why this is
the weight.
Yeah, you've got to balance the weight. You've got to be able to use that back leg to push through the hips and really put enough power into that axe. Otherwise, you're going to be completely dead tired after this discipline. So it's a really difficult discipline all in all, and I think this is the one discipline that requires the skills from almost all of the other disciplines combined, you know, with the exception of maybe the motor saw disciplines. But nevertheless, it's just a difficult one, and anything can happen, as we saw. And it all comes down to setting your pockets efficiently, cleanly, and getting good board position.
And now the final round, the hot saw. It is the most spectacular discipline, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
It's also known as the breaker or the maker discipline, because everything is possible. If you're now on the top spot, it's possible that you will be on the last place. I think it's crazy. It's crazy. So everything is possible until the end. And we'll have a clip now for the maker or breaker discipline. And afterwards, you will know more about the tool and the discipline itself as well. Have fun.
This is the one and only discipline where the athletes are alone on stage.
Yeah, probably the most important event, but also the most frustrating.
These saws are so incredibly powerful and dangerous.
Usually the hot saw is the slider.
Stand to timber.
Hot saw, hot saw.
Like I can't describe to you when we're out there under pressure.
Saw starts well, first disc looks solid, cut is good.
You know, you're always ending the competition on a hot saw, so you know where you're going to be at when you finish. So you're either at a real big high or just is what it is.
Nice clean cuts, easy and relaxed.
Der Hot Saw ist für mich die geilste Disziplin der Welt.
5, 6, 8, Robert after, 3 on the deck.
Hot saw is a love-hate for me. I honestly don't get that much enjoyment out of it. I'm not a motorhead. I swallow my pills and eat it.
Once the competition comes, anything can happen. Oh no, a false start by Sterling Hart. What a disaster.
Yeah, it was a disappointment for me. Happens though, it's part of competing.
I saw there's 3 good discs there, but then let that nose come right up underneath, cross over the line.
Fortunately, a disqualification.
It all relies on the hot saw.
Oh no.
Irgendwie soll es einfach nicht sein. Und dann springt die Hot Saw nicht an, wieder mal.
Oh man, that is a bummer for Robert Ebner.
What are you taking away from this event?
Oh, probably last place. I don't know, headache. Yeah, shit hot saw. What else do you want?
If you have bad luck or if you did wrong, it's sport, just your experience.
My goodness, what an absolute disaster. The chain came off.
I was not disappointed because everybody see that I can be with the guys in front.
It's a bit of a disaster, so it was just operator error, and I didn't perform as well as I would have liked to.
Nice safe cut.
Oh no! Oh no!
You're never prepared for that situation, but luckily it started and I got 3 wheels and now I'm the world champion.
Yeah, it's the make or break event, you know.
I think you love it and you hate it.
Das ist eigentlich immer ein geiles Ding. Ich schneide immer sehr sicher.
Weltrekord wollte ich schneiden, das war immer mein Ziel schon seit Jahren. Und das jetzt hier bei der DM zu machen, natürlich so grandios, kann man eigentlich gar nicht besser schreiben, das Buch, und bin natürlich super glücklich.
Try to make 3 good cuts and no disqualification.
The hot saw is where it's all one, so that's the best event.
These custom, handmade, race-tuned machines are built for maximum power and precision and to cut the wood as fast as possible in a competition. They are built with a 60 to 80 horsepower single-cylinder two-stroke engine, often taken from a snowmobile or high-powered motorbike. The hot saw can weigh up to 30 kilograms and its chain rotates at over 250 kilometers an hour. The cost of a competition hot saw used in STIHL TIMBERSPORTS is upward of 6,000 euros. Hot saw. For the hot saw, power saws are called into action and the athletes have a space of 15 centimeters to cut 3 complete discs off a 46 centimeter thick wooden block. Jumping the start or cutting over the line will result in a disqualification.
As we have just seen in the first video clip, the athletes are really in two minds about this discipline and about hot saw itself. It's crazy.
It's a love-hate relationship.
Yes, it is. But I think if you succeed, it's really great. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, I mean the adrenaline high that these guys get for something like the hot saw is off the charts. And I mean, if you're a gas head, you love this discipline anyway because it's got everything in the mix. You've got the fuel, you got the fire, and everything is just all mixed together. And then of course the action of cutting 3 discs off this 15 centimeter marking on the big 46 centimeter block. That's in itself a real test. It's not easy at all. So when these guys finish it, if they've got 3 cookies on the deck, no matter what time they have, they're like, oh yeah, So
happy all over
absolutely.
their faces.
Absolutely.
That's great. And also, what I wanted to mention, STIHL TIMBERSPORTS is not only here very present and on Facebook and on Twitch and on YouTube where the live streams are, but also on social media in general with the hashtag #KissMyEggs. I think the name is just amazing.
Love that.
Yes.
Kiss my axe. Awesome hashtag.
Pronouncing it wrong, of course, #KissMyEggs. So if you have Instagram and you want to tag it, tag #KissMyEggs.
And look at this. You could see there Maurice with his hot saw, and you could see a very strong man struggling to carry that thing while he was walking along to the paddocks. And I mean, it's a 30 kilogram piece of equipment that's moving with internal parts shaking and the chain going. And as you heard from the description, that chain rotates at upwards of 250 kilometers an hour. To put that in perspective, that's you driving 80 or 90 down the highway and a Porsche goes by you like you're sitting still. That's how fast those things are going. And if anything happens there, it's such a dangerous machine, and it's also very finicky. It won't start. The chain comes off the blade. Anything can happen, and that's why they have all these safety precautions around the athletes, because if something comes flying off that at 250 kilometers an hour, it's going to go a distance. So, there's a lot of things to be thinking about.
And it's bloody loud.
It's loud, but that's what's so great about it. That's one of the best things about it overall.
Well, we'll go right into the last starting list of this competition. In the first heat, the 6th and the 5th place are competing against each other, Pierre Puybare and Sebastian Masnada. In the second heat, Cyril Marchal and Alexandra Maurice. In the last heat of the last discipline, Julian and Pierre Puybare. I'm switching languages. I'm so sorry.
At least you can speak multiple languages. It's not where I stand. Okay, here we go with our first heat. Heat number 1 with Pierre Puybare and Sebastian Masnada. And you can see their hot saw times are really respectable, actually. If you look at the world record hot saw time, we're around 5:20. And at the moment, the Sebastian Masnada, for example, has a 6:11. So that's really, really a solid time. There we see Pierre Puybare. He's got a 10:96, but as we've seen with him today, he's made a few personal bests. So this could be an opportunity for him to have another personal best. And we hope to see that as always, because that shows improvement. Now what's happening right now is these guys are allowed to start the saw, warm it up. Now they want to make sure that they blow any of the carbon out of the motor to make sure that it's warm enough to start, because they have to rewrap their starting cord, and then they'll put both hands on top of the wood, and only when the gun sounds or the judge says go can they go down to the saw, start it, and then, only then, can they start their cuts. And they have to cut 3 complete cookies. And here is where holding the saw steady, having 3 good cuts is so important, because if you cut out, if you break a cookie halfway through, then it's a DQ, and you have to go back and cut another cookie. And we've seen a few things happen with this discipline. And this also new this year is that we've got 2 athletes on stage with the hot saw at the same time, which normally it was only 1.
This is so much multitasking to do.
Oh yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on in this discipline.
And also, if they put their hands too early off the wood block, it's also disqualification,
it's also
isn't
disqualification,
it?
Correct.
So much to think about.
Oh no, we've got a problem already for Poisson. So much for that personal best. That's not happening for him today, but Masnada with a 7:02. That's a great time for that guy. He's a little bit slower than his personal best, but still a solid time to start the day. And now Poisson finally got his saw started, and he's going to go through and get 3 cuts. But it looks like he might have gone over the line for his last cut with the excitement. So I'm hoping that he'll be able to keep that 21:02 time, but they're going to check very closely the lines there on that block. Remember, he's only got 15 centimeters to make the cut in. 21:52 is the current time unofficially. Let's wait and see what Bart Janssen has to say here. Whew. All right, a sigh of relief for Poisson. Unfortunately, it's a really rough time for him. Probably one of the slower times we'll see today at 21:53, but at least he's got the points there, and it's not a disqualification for cutting over the line. But you saw when he pulled that cord to start, and hopefully we'll see it again in the slow-mo, his saw didn't start, so he had to run over, get the cord, re-wrap it, and pull again. And you see, there it is. So it didn't start properly. He has to run over, re-wrap the thing, and then start again to make the 3 cookies. Finally, oh, he didn't get 2 times, he didn't get the start. And we were so concentrated on Sebastian Masnada that we didn't see the second start attempt. And here, he just jams it into the wood, and watch this last cookie cut right there. Super thick and fat, but right close to the line, but still was fair. And here's the view from Masnada. Got a good start. Nice, clean, thin to win first cookie. The second cookie was also really nice and thin, and so was the third. That's a fantastic set of cuts for a guy with some great experience in hot saw. So that's a good, solid job by Masnada. And by the way, the points ramp up in each of the following rounds. So in the first round, you saw, the points based on singles. In the second round, it doubled up. And then now in the third round, you can get 18 points for the top spot here. So really, winning the hot saw is such an important thing, or at least doing well in the hot saw to gain as many points as possible. Next heat, we've got Cyril Marchal against Alexandra Maurice. And we've got a 6:46 against a 6:06 personal best time for both of these guys. So these are 2 really evenly matched athletes as they come out on stage shortly. So I've just been given word that a saw is broken, and so we might have somebody lending somebody else a saw or making a quick repair. So we're just going to see what's happening here as the guys work frantically in the background. There is a time limit where these guys have to make sure that their equipment is actually working correctly. There we see Alexander Maurice, I believe, as he's got his saw running, and I'm guessing it is Cyril Marchal whose saw is not working correctly, as it seems like they've got a crew working on it right now. It's almost like a little bit of a pit stop there in Formula 1. So if he can get that thing running, then we should be good to go. Otherwise, he might have to borrow somebody else's saw, which is not an optimal situation, because then you're using a piece of equipment that's not familiar to you. But he's got himself the cloth wrapped around it, so it looks like he's okay and good to go.
Not all of them bring their own hot sauce, do they? Some of them get one from Bart Janssen, don't they?
Yeah, some guys have to borrow a saw. I mean, let's face it, Pia, they're mega expensive pieces of equipment, starting at around 6,000 euros, depending on the blade. You see different blade shapes, different blade lengths, different motor types. There's a Rotax motor. So, all these different things play a role in how much it's going to cost. And I mean, Danny Marr from Germany, for instance, has a saw that's worth more than 10,000 euros because of all these small things that he does. And these guys also, some of them have their own special fuel blends, if you can believe that or not. So, you know, it's sort of like doping for your saw a little bit.
But allowed doping.
Yeah.
Illegal.
It's
not
all
illegal.
really expensive stuff. So some of these guys are in a situation where they just can't afford to have the saw, so they'll borrow a saw. And that's one of the drawbacks for this particular discipline. You make it into the hot saw, great, hooray!
Yeah,
but if you've got to use somebody else's saw, or if you're not used to the equipment, then you know it could be different every single time. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, optimal situation is the guys come with their own saws every time, and you know, they're familiar with the equipment.
Yeah.
They know exactly the nuances, where to pull at what angle and how quickly, or you know, how much pressure they have to add to the trigger for the throttle. You know, these things all play a role in how confident they feel with the piece of equipment.
Of course.
So it's just like
They
driving
can
somebody
practice
else's
with it as well.
motorcycle or car. You know,
Yeah.
you're not used to it until you've had a chance to play.
But it looks like it works, doesn't it?
Well, so far, so good. We've got a couple of saws running on stage there, so that's a good sign. Time to beat, as you saw on the big red sign up behind them in between the two guys, is 7:22, but it looks like Cyril Marchal is shaking his head a little bit. Something doesn't feel right with his saw, so hopefully we'll be able to get him started for the competition here and move on to having 3 good cuts.
And it's universally known. People like us, like normal people, can't buy those since they're customized and very special. But we can buy smaller ones from STIHL, can't we? I think they're called GTA 26, aren't they? And they're like the mini version of it.
Yeah, it's a little tiny handsaw that you can use to cut branches and stuff in your garden, and it's a really cute little thing. It's fantastic. Yeah, so
it's
yeah,
great to get a feeling how.
All right, so here we go, Marchal and Maurice. Oh, looks like we've got 3 good cuts by both of these guys. Some pretty decent times as well. Cyril Marchal, who seemed to be having trouble earlier, now looks like he's got the fastest time of the day with a 7:31. Excuse me, there's been a correction. Sebastian Masnada still having the fastest time with 7:22, and Alexandra Maurice with an 8:50. We'll see what the judges have to say, though, making sure that all cuts are good. And if there's any adjustments to the time once it's made official, let's just wait and see what Bart Jansen has to say at stage front. Okay, we've got an investigation on stage. So Bart Jansen will be checking the lines to make sure everything is good. I kind of think Bart Jansen did that just to mess with us a little bit. So Cyril Marchal with a 7:23.01 seconds slower than Sebastian Masnada, who's got a 7:22. Alexandra Maurice with an 8:32. So those 3 guys at the moment are in the top 3 spots in hot saw, and really happy to see that Cyril Marchal did get his saw running, and boy, did he ever do a great job with those cuts. 3 good cookies on the deck, even with a quick investigation by Bart Jansen.
But to be honest, I would have expected it from him because he's the French national record holder of this discipline. So
yeah, and it's one of the most difficult disciplines to really be consistent at, because there's so many things that play into how this thing goes down. And now we're coming to our last heat between Meyer and Puybare, and basically this one's for all the marbles as they reset the stage there. And you can see the overall standings. Puybare is still in the top there with 67 points, but there is an opportunity here for Meyer. Guillermo could very well win this thing if he has the fastest time of the day and if Puybare has a DQ or a problem with his saw. But both of these guys have really, really solid personal bests in this discipline. So this is now going to be, I think, more of a mind game and a little bit of that luck situation between these 2 guys. They're both really solid with the hot saw. Puybare is in a position to win without really having to do much. He's just got to get a time, so it's about Guillermo really having a solid time. And if he can get a better time than 7:22, he'll take the 18 points. And if Puybare disqualifies or has a really slow time, then there is a chance that Moore could win this competition and take over the number 1 spot. That's going to be a difficult task, though. You can see that pull start for Puybare's saw is very, very short, not wasting any time with the quick pull on that one. And that's something else that you notice. The pull starts are sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, which means that if he has a false start, he doesn't have to wrap as much to get it started again. So it's all
smart.
Yeah, it's smart. It's all very diabolical, But these guys, they all have little small things that they do to try and improve their times on everything. A little bit of oil in the saw or on the
understandable,
axe,
yes.
And you want to do everything you can within the rules to be able to do your best and see how we do.
Are there special rules to follow
For
if you have
everything, yes.
Yeah, for the hot saw as well.
Especially for the hot saw.
Okay. It's starting.
3, 2, 1, go!
Oh boy, Puybare had to really pick up the pace on those last cuts. He's got an 8.81, and that means Moore has a faster time than Puybare, and that's got him in 3rd place. Puybare in 5th place. Let's check how that looks in the overall standings. Ooh, goodness gracious. 10 points difference between the two, but I won't say anything more than that because we're going to find out in a second which one of these two gentlemen is going to be on the top of the podium. How close was that? And it stays exciting to the very end. So 8.78 to an 8.15, a really nice time by Guillermo. Puybare, not his fastest time, but also very solid time. So now we're going to get down to business. Taking a look back at the replay. Watch the second cut right here. And then that third cut was a bit of a chunky start for Puybare. I don't know, it felt a little weird for me from his side of things as he goes down and checks those cookies immediately to make sure they're all set. And here's Guillermo. Look at that first cookie, super thin, barely a swing on the down cut, or on the up cut, excuse me. But then we saw a little bit of a delay, a hesitation through the midsection of that last cookie, but nevertheless, he had a great time. And now if we take a look at the hot saw, Masnada still with the fastest time in hot saw, but Guillermo at 3rd place and Puybare with 5th. And let's take a look at how that affects the overall ranking. Oh, I guess maybe not right away. Oh, doctor, here we go. Final
there
results.
It is.
Oh, Puybare defends his championship. He is still the reigning French champion. Great job, but look at the difference between the two. 10 points. Fantastic.
And now we'll have probably the most exciting and most interesting video in this whole competition with the winner, Puybare. And I want to know if he expected his win or not. And I think we'll hear it in just a second from Alain.
Coucou Munich, on est de retour. C'est la dernière épreuve qui vient de s'achever à l'instant même et j'ai avec moi le vainqueur, un sacré vainqueur parce qu'il a laissé la place pratiquement à personne. 4 disciplines gagnées pour Pierre Puybare et une très très belle victoire, Pierre. Ça a été magnifique.
Oui, j'ai fait de mon mieux. Après, j'ai assuré sur la dernière et puis ça a fait.
Voilà, en tout cas, les autres t'ont quand même donné un peu du fil à retordre.
Ah bah oui, ils avaient les dents longues, mais bon, j'ai su garder ma place et puis j'ai fait le boulot.
Voilà. Belle ambiance en Puy-en-Velay aujourd'hui, c'était super agréable.
Non, du monde, un super public et puis voilà, génial.
Voilà. Et puis tu avais à cœur celle-là de la gagner parce qu'il y avait une petite fille qui te regardait.
C'est ça, c'est pour ma petite Élise et voilà, elle a gagné.
Bravo. Merci Munich, bye bye, à une prochaine.
Ja, à prochain. we'll see him soon, he just said in French. And Puybare, what did he say? He said he is a bit disappointed because of the last discipline. He would have expected that he's better than he was, actually. But he stayed on the first place. He stayed the reigning champion. This is what makes him happy. And also he said that he enjoyed it very much to perform in front of an audience. Again, finally, after this virtual year, after 2020, where only a virtual competition was possible. And now we will have a look at the hot saw and the highlights of this discipline, won't we?
Yes, ma'am. So we can see there, that is the problems that we had right off the top with Poisson. He was the first heat where the drama began with his hot saw. He couldn't get it started 2 times. Not just 1 time was there a false start, but 2 times he had to rewrap that cord. And again, this comes down to what I said earlier, Pia, a shorter cord, quicker wrap than the faster start. But it didn't help him out much as he had a pretty slow time. In fact, the slowest time of the day with a 21:53. But as you hear all the time with these guys, that's just the nature of the beast. And really, they are beasts. And this was the cut, the 3 cuts from Puybare. And you could say, yeah, he was disappointed with those cuts, but... oh, was that Puybare? No, I'm sorry, it wasn't Puybare. I believe that was Marshall. And we saw some, some great action here. Nothing really faster than a 7:22, but the only one time that went above 10 seconds was Pierre Poisson, and that was an unfortunate series of errors because of the start. Then we had some great racing here with the hot saw, and no
DQ.
Disqualifications.
Yes. I just wanted to say that this is pretty impressive, isn't it?
It's very impressive. I
Yeah.
mean, this is one of the fewest competitions, or rather, this is one of the fewest competitions with the fewest DQs that we've had in a long, long time. Normally, we're seeing like 6 or 7 DQs for various reasons, but this was about as clean as it gets. It was a really, really solid competition all around. And there we see Guillermo with a really, really solid time of 8:15, actually faster than Puybare. And Puybare with an 8:78, a couple of seconds off of his fastest time. So that's why he was disappointed there. But nevertheless, he is the then and now champion for STIHL TIMBERSPORTS in France. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to see him on stage for the World Championship as well.
And well, now we will watch one of the last clips in this live stream. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because it's about all the athletes talking about their experience of 2020, where, as I just mentioned, only a virtual competition was possible. And I think it really gets under your skin. You get goosebumps when you watch it because of the words they are saying. But make yourself your own impression. Sorry.
Things have changed in the year 2020. We all know that. Welcome to the STIHL TIMBERSPORTS World Championship.
Hey TIMBERSPORTS World, it's Matt Slingerland here.
Hi, ich bin Meyer.
I'm Martha King.
G'day, I'm Brad Velez.
Jestem Michał Dubicki.
Ciao a tutti, sono Michael Elping.
Io sono Swan.
Hi fans, here's the Robert.
I'm Braden Meyer.
He's 24 years of age. I believe he's still our current world record holder in the underhand chop.
During COVID, I moved to El Paso, Texas, took a travel therapy job, wanted to help out the community.
In this current situation with the COVID-19, I've just spent a lot of time at home, spending time with our newborn baby Grace.
Just doing some stuff around the house, doing bathroom remodel.
Doing hobbies I enjoy, such as steelhead fishing and mushroom foraging.
In der Freizeit, die mir bleibt, versuche ich mehr zu wandern und Zeit zu verbringen mit meiner Familie.
Definite advantage now for Armin Kugler from Austria. 3, 2, 1, go!
Ich hoffe, dass bald wieder vorangeht, dass die Saison starten kann, auch dieses Jahr noch.
We're a strong community and we love our sport, so keep training, stay positive.
Es kann bloß besser werden. Wir halten jetzt alle voll durch.
Still keeping up with some of the training, because eventually when this thing's over, we're going to have a competition sometime.
Hopefully everyone's still training hard and keeping an eye on what we do over the off-season, and hopefully we're up and going as soon as we can.
We're a community. We're in this together.
It is just a fantastic event. The excitement in the audience, The fans absolutely going for it. It is loud as can be in here. The fans are going bananas, and we are going to see some epic competition here.
I want to say I miss you guys. I can't wait till we get to compete against each other again.
Ich hoffe, dass es euch allen gut geht, dass ihr gesund seid, dass eure Familien gesund sind.
Take care of yourselves, but also take care of others.
Stay home, keep training, because I know I am.
Ich freue mich auf euch, auf die Fans, auf die Follower, auf alle, die den Sport begeisternd verfolgen.
Be nice and kind to people as much as you can.
Ich hoffe, ihr bleibt alle gesund und wir können uns demnächst wieder auf einen wunderschönen Wettkampf sehen.
Stay safe and I hope to see you all soon.
Ich wünsche euch alles Gute und wir sehen uns. Bis dann.
Stay safe, be smart, and train a lot because I'm coming for you.
And hopefully you'll have a good year. Cheers.
So let's start right into the prize ceremony. We'll leave out the athletes on the places 12 to 4. We'll start right into the podium prize ceremony. On the third place, you see him right now on the stream, is Sebastian Masnada with the total points of 62. And he's pretty happy about it. He is. There you can see now the second place silver medalist, who is Guillermo. Finally, I can pronounce it with only one more point. He has a total points of 63, so it was pretty close to the third place. And there you can see the first place and the gold medalist with his daughter. Isn't this cute? I think this is really cute.
Pierre, that's his best prize ever, hey?
Yeah, it definitely is. Pierre Puybare with a total points of 73, so 10 points more than the second place. This is a win, isn't it?
This is a win. This is an absolute concise and decisive win from Pierre Puybare. Just a fantastic job by all three of these guys on the podium. Bronze, silver, and gold. But I mean, all three of these guys can be really proud of how things panned out today. But Puybare is just such a strong competitor with so much experience internationally and nationally. So, you know, that's everything you need to know about that man right there.
But the excitement is real, and also Pierre Puybare is still very happy, even though he could get used to it by now.
Yeah, it should be old hat for him. And, you know, he's like any other competitive guy who wants to be number one all the time. You know, he wants that little extra point, that little extra time, or rather a shorter time. So
beating himself.
You know,
and
he's his own worst enemy in that case. You know, he wants to be better every time. But, you know, there you see our final results.
Yeah, there you see them. So now we can say on the 12th position, Julian Meyer. Now you can see in the live stream the final results. As I just mentioned, on the 12th position, Julian Meyer with total points of 8. On the 11th place, Adrian Courteau. At the 10th place, Christophe Larue. At the 9th place, Alain Pajar. The 8th place, Alain David. The 7th, Marc Muller. The 6th, who we just saw, Pierre-Louis Poisson. The 5th, Alexandra Maurice. The 4th, Cyril Marchal. And the last 3, as we just mentioned, Masnada, Mor, and Puybare. So now, this was a pretty exciting and thrilling competition, don't you think so?
It was a solid day of competition, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. We saw some really great action, and you know, there's a lot of background stuff that goes on that you don't hear about, but what we saw on stage was great. I mean,
definitely.
And as you heard Bart Janssen mention, he's really happy with the wood, and I mentioned it all day long. You saw that was really solid, more or less close together scores with each of the sections where the wood is considered, key. So there was nothing where you saw one guy just really whacking away better than anybody else. I mean, it was really, really solid all day long, and
not so many DQs. So in my mind, opinion, this was great.
I think we counted 3 in total for the whole competition. That's really unusual. So you gotta like that. Absolutely, absolutely.
But this will not be the last competition in this season. Nope. Not even for the summer. We are on the run because next week the Rookie European Championship in Munich will take place. Directly afterwards, the European Trophy, which I am really excited about, but I have already mentioned this a few times. On the 7th of August, the European Nations Cup, as you can see. On one day later, the Austrian Pro Championship, also in Munich, and the 21st, the German Pro Championship. But not even this is the end. In September, will go on. So it stays exciting. And in October, there will be the World Championship. I am so excited.
Plenty of action still to come, and I'm super excited as well because it means that we're back in the mix and still going strong.
That's amazing. So at this point, we want to show you the highlights of this competition and want to say goodbye. Thanks for watching, everyone. We hope you've enjoyed as much as we did, because I really did enjoy. And hopefully we'll see each other at the next competition next Saturday with the European Trophy in Munich. Thank you and bye.
Ciao, everybody.